I thought I was living a fairy tale until my mother-in-law clinked her glass at our anniversary party, stood up in front of our shocked guests, and revealed the devastating truth I never saw coming. With a triumphant smirk, she announced to the room that my husband had a secret second wife and family halfway across the country. As my world shattered around me, I felt the sting of betrayal pierce my heart. Little did I know, this cruel anniversary gift would turn out to be the beginning of my journey to rebuild my life from the ground up. A crisp October afternoon, the leaves just starting to turn those gorgeous shades of crimson and gold that make you want to cozy up with a pumpkin spice latte. My husband James and I had been counting down the days to our 5th anniversary celebration, planning a dreamy backyard soiree with all our nearest and dearest. I was doing that thing where you twirl in front of the mirror, loving how your dress swishes around your knees. You know the feeling. It was this deep blue number that made my eyes pop. I fastened my grandmother's antique locket around my neck, my something old from our wedding day, and felt a buzz of happiness. 5 years of marriage to my high school sweetheart, and I was still head over heels. Our little townhouse had been transformed into an enchanted garden for the occasion, all twinkling string lights and flickering candles. The air was filled with the clinking of Prosecco glasses and the warm chatter of our favorite people. It felt like one of those movie moments where everything is just perfect. James was schmoozing like a pro, looking dapper as ever with his boyish grin and mischievous green eyes. I overheard him telling the story of how he knew I was the one from the first time I laughed at one of his so bad they're good puns. I couldn't help but swoon a little, my heart doing cartwheels in my chest. Of course, it wouldn't be a party without my mother-in-law, Cynthia. She'd flown in from Chicago, always ready to make a grand entrance. Over the years, we'd had our ups and downs. She had a way of slipping in those subtle digs that could make me feel about 2 inches tall. But tonight, seeing her beaming at James like he hung the moon, I shook off my unease. Tonight was about celebrating love, right? As the sun started its slow dip behind the trees, painting the sky in dreamy watercolors, James clinked his glass to get everyone's attention. He launched into this heartfelt speech about our life together, the highs, the lows, the funny moments in between. With every word, I fell a bit more in love with the amazing man I got to call my husband. Lost in a happy daze, twirling my wedding band around my finger, I almost didn't notice when Cynthia stood up, a mischievous glint in her eye. "And now," she trilled, "I have a special announcement of my own." The way everyone went quiet, you could have heard a pin drop. I saw something flicker across James's face. Was that panic? Guilt? But before I could make sense of it, Cynthia dropped the bombshell. "While we're all celebrating James and Emily's love story, I think it's time you knew the truth. James has another wife and a 3-year-old daughter." I swear, time stopped in that moment. My champagne flute slipped from my fingers, shattering on the patio tiles, a weirdly poetic metaphor for my life imploding. James was saying something, reaching for me, but his words just sounded like static. My mind was reeling. This had to be a mistake, a cruel joke. Not my James, not the man who'd promised me forever. But as I searched his face, really looked into those eyes I thought I knew, better than my own, I saw the awful truth written there plain as day. It felt like I was watching a movie of my own life, but someone had changed the ending when I wasn't looking. Suddenly, all those little things that hadn't quite added up over the years clicked into place with a sickening clarity. The business trips, the hushed phone calls, the way he'd been distant lately. I did the only thing I could think of. I ran. Ran from the pitying stares of my friends, from the smoldering ruins of the life I thought I knew. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I needed air, space, a chance to clear my head and figure out which way was up. As my heels pounded the pavement, the crisp night air drying the tears on my cheeks, one question played on a loop in my mind. How do you find yourself? Again, When the person you trusted most in the world shatters your reality, I wouldn't find the answers that night, or for many painful nights to come. But what I didn't realize then was that this earth-shattering moment, my worst nightmare come to life, would turn out to be the wake-up call I needed to rediscover my own strength. Step by messy step, I would learn to pick up the pieces of my fractured heart and build something new, something stronger. I would become the hero of my own story. And it would be a story far more beautiful and bold than any fairy tale I'd been clinging to. The days following that disastrous anniversary party were a blur. I felt like I was sleepwalking through my own life, going through the motions at work, picking at meals, staring blankly at the TV without really seeing anything. It was like my brain was stuck in this loop, replaying that horrible moment over and over again, trying to make sense of it. James kept calling, leaving long, pleading voicemails full of apologies and explanations. But every time I heard his voice, felt that familiar tug in my chest, I just couldn't bring myself to pick up the phone. It was like there was this invisible wall between us now, built from all the lies and betrayal. I didn't know how to even begin to scale it. My friends were amazing, though. They took turns checking in on me, dropping off care packages full of my favorite comfort foods and trashy magazines. They'd sit with me for hours, letting me cry or rant or just stare into space. They never pushed me to talk before I was ready, but I knew they were there, a solid support system when my world had turned to quicksand. One night, about a week after the bomb drop, my best friend Sophie showed up at my door with a bottle of wine and a determined look in her eye. "All right, babe," she said, marching into my living room and plonking down on the couch. "Time for some real talk." I poured us each a generous glass of Merlot and curled up on the opposite end of the sofa, hugging a throw pillow to my chest, like a shield. Sophie took a sip of her wine, fixed me with a sympathetic but firm gaze, and dove right in. "I know you're hurting. I can't even imagine how betrayed and lost you must feel right now. But hiding away, shutting out the world, that's not going to heal your heart, Em. It's just going to let the wounds fester." I opened my mouth to protest, but Sophie held up a hand, cutting me off. "I'm not saying you need to have all the answers right now. Hell, I'm not even saying you need to decide what you want to do about James and this whole mess. But babe, you need to start putting one foot in front of the other." She reached over and squeezed my hand, her eyes soft. "Start small. Take a shower. Put on some fresh clothes. Go for a walk around the block. Call your mom. Just do one tiny thing each day to remind yourself that you're still here, still breathing, still moving forward." I felt the burn of tears in the back of my throat, but for the first time in days, they didn't feel like they would drown me. Sophie's words, her fierce, no-nonsense love, were like a lifeline, a guiding light in the dark. And she was right. As much as I wanted to burrow under my covers and shut out the world, I knew I couldn't hide forever. Sooner or later, I would have to face this new reality. This life I hadn't asked for but was now mine to navigate. So the next morning, I forced myself out of bed. I stood under the hot spray of the shower until my skin was pink and wrinkled, letting the water sluice away some of the heaviness that had settled in my bones. I made myself a real breakfast, even if it was just scrambled eggs on toast. And I took that walk, just a quick loop around the neighborhood. But with each step, I felt a tiny spark of something that might have been hope. It wasn't much, but it was a start. A tiny act of defiance against the grief and betrayal that wanted to swallow me whole. A whispered promise to myself that I would survive this, even if I had no idea what that looked like yet. Over the next few weeks, I slowly started to put the pieces of my life back together. I went back to work, throwing myself into my projects with a fervor that surprised even me. It felt good to focus on something outside of my own pain, to lose myself in spreadsheets and meetings and feel like I was actually accomplishing something. I leaned on my friends and family like never before, accepting their love and support, with a gratitude that often left me choked up. I had always prided myself on my independence, on being the strong one, the rock. But now I was learning the power of vulnerability, of letting others see my cracks and trusting them to help me, fill them in. And bit by bit, I started to rediscover parts of myself that I hadn't even realized I'd lost. I signed up for a painting class on a whim, remembering how much I'd loved art in college before I'd gotten swept up in the practicalities of adult life. I felt clumsy and awkward at first, my strokes tentative, my colors muddled. But with each brushstroke, each messy, imperfect creation, I felt a little piece of my soul come back to life. I started writing again, too. Nothing fancy, just a journal where I could spill out all the feelings I couldn't quite voice out loud. The anger, the hurt, the fear, the tiny shoots of hope that I was almost afraid to acknowledge. Putting pen to paper felt like exhaling after holding my breath for too long. A release valve for the pressure that had been building in my chest. Slowly, through these tiny acts of bravery and self-care, I began to feel like maybe, just maybe, I would be. Okay, not today, not tomorrow, but someday. I was beginning to see that even in the midst of this nightmare, there were glimmers of opportunity, a chance to rediscover who I was, what I wanted, outside of my marriage, and the role of wife I'd clung to so tightly. It wasn't a straight line, this journey of healing and rediscovery. There were still days when the pain would hit me anew, knocking the wind from my lungs and bringing me to my knees. Nights when I'd lie awake, my mind spinning with unanswered questions and what-ifs. But I was learning to ride out these waves, to let them crash over me without pulling me under. Each time I surfaced, each time I picked myself back up and kept going, I felt a little stronger, a little more whole. I still didn't know what the future held. Divorce papers loomed on the horizon, a messier, more tangible reminder of the betrayal that had shattered my world. There were moments when the thought of facing James, of hashing out the logistics of untangling our lives, made me want to crawl back into bed and pull the covers over my head. But I was done hiding, done letting my fear and pain call the shots. I had fought too hard, come too far to backslide now. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew I would meet them with my head held high, secure in the knowledge that I had already weathered the worst storm of my life and come out the other side. I wasn't the same woman I had been on that crisp October night, all starry-eyed and blissfully unaware of the bomb about to drop. But maybe, just maybe, I was becoming someone stronger, wiser, more fully myself. Someone who could look at her reflection in the mirror and see not just a woman broken by betrayal, but a survivor, a fighter, a phoenix rising from the ashes of her old life. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but for the first time since, my world had shattered. I felt a flicker of excitement amid the fear. I had no idea where this journey would take me, but I knew one thing for sure. I was ready to find out. So there I was, standing in front of my bathroom mirror, taking deep breaths and giving myself a silent pep talk. Today was the day I'd been dreading for weeks, my first face-to-face meeting with James since the anniversary party from hell. We were supposed to sit down with our lawyers and start hashing out the terms of the divorce. Just the thought of seeing him again, of facing the man who had shattered my trust and my heart, made my stomach churn and my palms sweat. But I knew I couldn't put it off forever. As much as I wanted to fast forward through this painful chapter of my life, I knew the only way out was through. I'd been working with my therapist to prepare for this moment, practicing deep breathing exercises and visualization techniques to keep myself grounded. She'd coached me on how to stay focused, on my own needs and boundaries, even in the face of James's inevitable attempts to sway me with apologies or excuses. Remember, she'd said in our last session, her eyes kind but firm, you're not responsible for managing his emotions or assuaging his guilt. Your only job is to take care of yourself and advocate for what you need to move forward. I repeated. Those words to myself like a mantra as I got dressed, choosing an outfit that made me feel polished and powerful. A sleek navy sheath dress and my favorite high heels. I swept my hair into a neat updo and swiped on a coat of red lipstick, the shade that Sophie always joked could make grown men tremble. It was my armor, my war paint for the battle ahead. As I walked into the conference room at my lawyer's office, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might bust right through my rib cage. And then, there he was, James, sitting at the far end of the long table, looking tired and somehow smaller than I remembered. For a moment, I felt a pang of something that might have been sympathy. He looked about as wrecked as I felt. But then I caught a glimpse of Cynthia sitting beside him, her lips pursed in a smug little smile, and any shred of compassion evaporated. This was the woman who had gleefully blown up my life, who had taken some twisted pleasure in humiliating me in front of everyone I loved. Just the sight of her made my blood boil. I sat down beside my lawyer, Rachel, who gave my hand a quick, reassuring squeeze under the table. I focused on the feel of her steady fingers, the coolness of the polished wood under my palms, using those physical sensations to anchor myself in the present moment. And then we were off to the races, diving into the nitty-gritty details of dividing assets and debts, of deciding who would keep the house and the car and the damn blender we'd received as a wedding gift. It was surreal, reducing the life James and I had built together into a list of bullet points and dollar signs. There were moments when I wanted to scream, to sweep all the papers off the table and demand to know how any of this was fair. There were moments when the hurt and anger would swell up in my throat, threatening to choke me. But every time I felt myself starting to spiral, I'd catch Rachel's eye and take a deep breath, silently repeating my therapist's words like a lifeline. And slowly, somehow, we made it through. It wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't pretty. There were raised voices and tense silences, and more than a few tears shed on both sides. But by the end of that marathon session, we had the bones of an agreement, a roadmap for how to dismantle the life James and I had shared, and start building separate futures. As I walked out of the office, emotionally drained but strangely lighter, I realized that I had survived my worst fear. I had faced James, looked into the eyes of the man who had betrayed me so deeply, and I had held my ground. I hadn't crumbled or caved, hadn't let his attempts at manipulation sway me from what I knew I needed. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of things, but it felt monumental to me. For the first time since that fateful anniversary night, I felt a glimmer of something that might have been pride. Pride in my own strength, my own resilience in the face of unimaginable pain. Over the next few weeks, as the divorce proceedings chugged along and the paperwork piled up, I continued. To surprise myself with my own capacity for growth and change, I found myself tackling challenges that would have sent me running for the hills just a few short months ago. I sat down with a financial advisor and made a plan for my post-divorce budget, learning more about investments and long-term planning than I ever thought possible. I took a solo trip to the beach, something I'd always been too scared to do when I was married, and discovered a new love for the peace and solitude of long walks on the sand. I even started volunteering at a local women's shelter, spending my weekends sorting donations and chatting with the residents over cups of strong coffee. Hearing their stories, witnessing their bravery in the face of unspeakable trauma and adversity, put my own struggles into perspective. It also reminded me of the incredible resilience of the human spirit, the way we can find sparks of hope and healing even in the darkest of places. Gradually, almost imperceptibly at first, I started to feel like I was coming back to life. Not the life I had before, the one I'd shared with James. That chapter was closed now, sealed shut with the final flourish of a judge's pen on our divorce decree. No. This was a new life, one entirely my own. It wasn't always easy, and there were still plenty of moments when the grief and anger would hit me like a sucker punch to the gut. I had to learn to be gentle with myself on the bad days, to let myself feel the full spectrum of my emotions without judgment or shame. But even on the toughest days, I could feel myself growing, stretching, evolving in ways I never thought possible. I was learning to trust my own voice, my own instincts. I was building a life that was authentic to me, filled with passions and people that lit me up from the inside out. And as the months passed and the sting of betrayal began to fade, I found myself looking to the future with a newfound sense of excitement. I had no idea what lay ahead, what twists and turns my path might take. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt truly, deeply free. Free to dream new dreams, to chase after the things that made my soul sing. Free to love again, not from a place of naivety or blind trust, but from a place of deep knowing and self-assurance. Free to create a life that was bigger, bolder, and more beautiful than anything I could have imagined before. As I sat on my back porch one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in streaks of orange and pink, I felt a quiet sense of triumph bloom in my chest. I had walked through the fire of betrayal and heartbreak and come out the other side changed, but unbroken. I knew there would still be hard days ahead, moments when the echoes of my old life would tug at my heart and make me question everything. But I also knew that I had the tools, the strength, and the support system to weather any storm. I had become the heroine of my own story, the architect of my own happiness. And as I raised my glass of wine in a silent toast to the setting sun, I knew that no matter what the future held, I would never again settle for anything less than the extraordinary, expansive, joy-filled life I deserved. Life after divorce was a journey of rediscovery, a chance to peel back the layers of who I thought I was supposed to be and get reacquainted with the woman underneath. It wasn't a straight line by any means. There were plenty of detours and roadblocks along the way. But with each challenge, each triumph, I could feel myself growing stronger, more confident in my own skin. One of the biggest hurdles I faced was learning to trust again, not just others but myself. James's betrayal had shaken me to my core, leaving me questioning my own judgment, my ability to read people and situations. I found myself second-guessing every interaction, every new connection, always bracing for the other shoe to drop. It took time and a whole lot of therapy to start dismantling those walls, to remind myself that one person's actions didn't define the entire world, or my place in it. My therapist likened it to a trust fall exercise, the kind you might do at a corporate retreat or a summer camp. Right now, she explained, your instinct is to brace for impact, to tense up and anticipate the worst. But the more you practice, leaning into uncertainty, the more you'll start to trust that you can handle whatever comes your way, and that there will be people there to catch you if you fall. So I started small, taking little leaps of faith in my daily life. I said yes to coffee with a new coworker, even though my mind was spinning with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. I signed up for a dance class, something I'd always wanted to try but had been too self-conscious to attempt. And slowly but surely, I started to feel my grip on control loosen, replaced by a growing sense of openness and possibility. Of course, learning to trust again didn't just apply to new experiences and relationships. It also meant learning to trust myself in navigating my post-divorce reality. And let me tell you, there were times when that reality felt like one giant question mark staring me in the face. There were the logistical puzzles to solve, like figuring out how to maintain a household on a single income and divvying up holidays and special occasions with my ex. There were the emotional minefields to navigate, like telling our families and friends about the divorce and fielding their well-meaning but often misguided attempts at advice and consolation. And then there were the existential quandaries, the ones that would keep me up at night staring at the ceiling and wondering who I was now that I was no longer one half of a couple. What did I want my life to look like? What dreams and goals had I put on hold in the name of compromise and now had the chance to pursue? It was overwhelming at times, the sheer volume of decisions and dilemmas that came with starting over. But Bit by bit, choice by choice, I started to piece together a vision for my future, one that was grounded in my own values and desires. I leaned on my support system heavily during this time, my friends and family who rallied around me with love and encouragement. They were my sounding board and my cheerleaders, the ones who reminded me of my own strength when I was feeling lost or uncertain. And I also started to build a new kind of support system, one made up of other women who were going through similar transitions. I joined a divorce support group at the suggestion of my therapist, and while I was hesitant at first, it quickly became a lifeline. There was something powerful about sitting in a room with other people who just got it, who understood the unique mix of grief and liberation that came with untangling your life from someone else's. We swapped stories and resources, celebrated each other's victories, and held space for each other's pain. Through those connections, I started to see my own experience in a different light. I realized that I wasn't alone in my struggles, that the roller coaster of emotions I was feeling was a normal part of the healing process. And I also realized that there was life on the other side of this turmoil, that other women had not only survived their divorces, but had gone on to thrive in ways they never could have imagined. One woman in particular became a mentor of sorts to me, a fiery redhead named Maggie, who had gotten divorced a few years earlier after 2 decades of marriage. She had rebuilt her life from the ground up, starting her own business and buying a home on her own for the first time in her life. The secret, she told me one day over coffee, is to fall in love with the process, not just the end point. Embrace the mess, the uncertainty, the chance to start fresh. This is your opportunity to create a life that feels authentic to you, to chase after the things that light you up inside. Her words stuck with me, a reminder to find joy and purpose in the present moment, even as I work towards my long-term goals. And as I started to put that philosophy into practice, I could feel a shift happening inside me. I stopped seeing my divorce as a failure, a shameful chapter to be rushed through and forgotten. Instead, I started to view it as a crucial part of my journey, a catalyst for growth and self-discovery. I began to celebrate my own resilience, my ability to pick myself up and keep going even when the road ahead was uncertain. And with that newfound perspective came a sense of excitement for the future, a belief that the best was yet to come. I started dreaming bigger, setting goals that would have felt impossible just a few short years ago. I took a solo trip to Europe, something James and I had always talked about but never made the time for. I savored every moment of that adventure, from getting lost in the winding streets of Prague to sipping wine under the Eiffel Tower at sunset. And with each new experience, each challenge conquered, I could feel myself coming back to life, rediscovering parts of myself that had lain dormant for far too long. Back at home, I threw myself into my passions with renewed energy. I took writing classes and joined a book club, nurturing my love of stories and words. I volunteered with a local organization that supported women entrepreneurs, using my business skills to help others chase their dreams. And through it all, I marveled at the woman I was becoming, someone who was brave and strong and unafraid to take up space in the world. Someone who knew her own worth and refused to settle for anything less than a life that made her soul sing. Looking back now, it's clear that my divorce was not an ending, but a beginning. The start of a journey towards a deeper, truer version of myself. It was the fire that burned away everything that no longer served me, leaving behind only the essentials, the core of who I was and what I wanted. And while I wouldn't wish the pain of betrayal and heartbreak on anyone, I'm grateful for the lessons it taught me. I'm grateful for the chance to start over, to build a life that is entirely my own. I'm grateful for the woman I've become, the one who can look in the mirror and see not just a survivor, but a thriver. To anyone else out there facing the uncertainty and upheaval of a major life transition, whether it's a divorce or something else entirely, I want to offer this piece of hard-won wisdom. Trust the journey. Embrace the discomfort, the fear, the messiness of change. Because it's in those liminal spaces, those moments of transformation, that we find out what we're truly made of. And when you come out the other side, and you will, I promise you that, you'll be stronger, wiser, and more alive than you ever thought possible. You'll be the hero of your own story, the creator of a life that is rich and full and bursting with possibility. So take a deep breath, sweet friend. Take one step, then another. Trust that you have everything you need to weather this storm and come out the other side shining. And know that whatever the future holds, you've got this. And you've got an army of women behind you, cheering you on every step of the way. As I settled into my new normal, I realized that my journey of post-divorce growth wasn't just about the big transformative moments. It was also about finding joy and purpose in the day-to-day. It was about learning to be present and grateful for the little things, the small pleasures and simple beauties that made up a life well lived. One thing that really helped me cultivate this mindset was starting a gratitude practice. Every morning, before I even got out of bed, I would take a few minutes to list off 3 things I was thankful for. Anything from my cozy blanket to my supportive friends to the smell of fresh coffee brewing in the kitchen. At first, it felt a little silly, a little forced. But over time, I started to notice a shift. I found myself going through my days with a greater sense of appreciation and wonder, more attuned to the goodness that was all around me. It was like I had flipped a switch in my brain, trading my default setting of stress and worry for one of openness and abundance. This practice became especially important as I navigated the ups and downs of post-divorce dating. Let me tell you, diving back into the dating pool after years of marriage was an adventure in itself. One part thrilling, one part terrifying, and entirely uncharted territory. There were awkward first dates where I struggled to make small talk over dinner, silently praying for the check to come as quickly as possible. There were sparks of connection that fizzled out as quickly as they'd ignited, leaving me questioning my own judgment and desirability. And there were moments of genuine excitement and possibility that reminded me of just how much I still had to look forward to in this new chapter of my life. Through it all, I learned to approach dating with a spirit of curiosity and self-compassion. I reminded myself that every encounter, whether it led to a second date or not, was an opportunity to learn more about myself and what I wanted in a partner. And on the days when my confidence was shaken or my heart was bruised, I leaned into my gratitude practice even harder, giving thanks for my own resilience, for the lessons I was learning, and for the fact that I was brave enough to keep showing up and putting myself out there. As I continued to date and grow, I also found myself becoming more intentional about the kind of life I wanted to build for myself. I took stock of my values, my passions, my long-held dreams, all the things that had taken a back seat during my marriage, and started making them a priority again. For me, that meant recommitting to my writing, carving out time each day to work on the novel I'd been tinkering with for years. It meant traveling more, saying yes to opportunities that pushed me out of my comfort zone and expanded my horizons. And it meant investing in my friendships, both old and new, nurturing the connections that brought me joy and supported me through thick and thin. One of the most significant relationships I cultivated during this time was with my ex-husband. James, I know, it sounds counterintuitive given everything we'd been through. But as the dust settled on our divorce and we both started to heal, we realized that we still cared for each other deeply, just in a different way than before. We started out with small gestures, like checking in via text on each other's birthdays, or sharing updates about our families. Over time, those interactions grew into longer conversations, ones where we could acknowledge the pain we'd caused each other, while also expressing gratitude for the good times we'd shared. It wasn't always easy, and there were definitely moments when old wounds would get reopened or misunderstandings would arise. But we were both committed to treating each other with kindness and respect, to honoring the love that had once been the foundation of our relationship, even as we let go of the romantic partnership itself. And slowly, but surely, we started to build a new kind of relationship, one based on friendship, mutual understanding, and a shared history. We might not have been husband and wife anymore, but we could still be a part of each other's lives in a way that felt meaningful and authentic. Looking back on it now, I realize that my ability to forge this new connection with James was a testament to my own growth and healing. It was proof of how far I'd come, how much I'd learned about forgiveness, boundaries, and the power of choosing love over resentment. And that, I think, is the real miracle of my post-divorce journey. Not just the external changes in my life, but the internal transformation that made them possible. The shift from a woman who was shattered by betrayal to one who could pick up the pieces and create something beautiful and new. The evolution from someone who looked to others for validation and security to someone who knew her own worth and was unafraid to claim it. Make no mistake, this transformation didn't happen overnight. It took time, effort, and a whole lot of patience and self-compassion. There were days when I felt like I was moving backwards instead of forwards, when the old fears and insecurities would rear their ugly heads and threaten to drag me under. But what I learned, through all the ups and downs, was that growth isn't a straight line. It's a winding path, full of detours and switchbacks and unexpected vistas. It's a journey that requires us to get lost in order to find ourselves, to embrace the discomfort and uncertainty as part of the process. And the beauty of it all, the journey never really ends. There's no finish line to cross, no moment of arrival where we can say, "Okay, I'm done growing now." Instead, it's a lifelong adventure, one that invites us to keep exploring, keep discovering, keep becoming more and more of who we truly are. As I look ahead to the future, I feel a sense of excitement and possibility that I never could have imagined in those early days after my divorce. I know that there will be more challenges to face, more lessons to learn, more opportunities to stretch myself and expand my horizons. But I also know that I have everything I need to weather whatever storms may come: the strength, the wisdom, the love and support of an incredible community. And so, to anyone out there who may be facing their own upheaval, their own journey of transformation, whether it's a divorce, a career change, a new chapter in any area of life, I offer this invitation. Embrace the journey. Trust the process. Know that you are exactly where you need to be, even when it feels hard or scary or uncertain, because on the other side of that discomfort is a life beyond your wildest dreams, a life of joy, purpose, and endless possibility. A life that is waiting for you to claim it, to step into it with your whole heart and your head held high. You've got this, my friend, and I'm right here with you, cheering you on every step of the way. You know, as I reflect on my journey from betrayal to breakthrough, I'm struck by how much my perspective has shifted on what it means to live a fulfilling life. It's like I've gone from seeing the world in black and white to experiencing it in full, vibrant color. And let me tell you, the view is pretty darn spectacular. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that true happiness isn't about reaching some elusive end goal or checking off a list of accomplishments. It's about finding joy and meaning in the present moment, in the day-to-day details of our lives. It's about savoring the little things, the warmth of the sun on your face, the laughter of a good friend, the satisfaction of pouring your heart into something you love. This shift in mindset didn't happen overnight, of course. For a long time, after my divorce, I found myself falling into the trap of what I call destination thinking. This idea that I'd be happy once I reached a certain milestone or achieved a particular goal. Once I got that promotion, once I found the perfect partner, once I had my dream house, then I'd be content. But the truth is, that kind of thinking is a recipe for perpetual dissatisfaction. Because the goalposts are always moving, you know? As soon as we reach one milestone, we're already looking ahead to the next one, never fully appreciating where we are in the present. It's like that old saying about happiness being a journey, not a destination. And for me, learning to embrace that journey, with all its twists and turns and detours, has been the key to finding true fulfillment. These days, I try to approach each day with a sense of curiosity and openness, looking for opportunities to learn and grow and connect with others. I've gotten into the habit of asking myself, what can I discover today? What can I create? What can I appreciate? And let me tell you, it's amazing how much richness and beauty there is to be found when you start looking at life through that lens. One practice that's been really transformative for me is mindfulness. You know, the art of being fully present in the moment, without judgment or distraction. I used to think it was all a bit woo-woo, to be honest. Like, who has time to sit around meditating when there's so much to do? But as I've started incorporating mindfulness into my daily life, I've realized that it's not about checking out or tuning out the world around you. It's actually about tuning in, becoming more aware of your thoughts, your emotions, your physical sensations, and the environment you're in. And when you do that, when you really allow yourself to be present, it's like the volume gets turned up on your life. Colors seem brighter, flavors seem richer, interactions seem more meaningful. It's like you're experiencing everything in high definition, rather than just going through the motions on autopilot. Of course, mindfulness is a practice, not a perfection. There are still plenty of times when I get caught up in worry or stress, or distraction. I'm human after all. But I've found that the more I train my mind to come back to the present, the easier it becomes to find that place of peace and clarity, even in the midst of chaos. Another big shift for me has been learning to let go of the need for control. As a type A overachiever, I used to believe that the key to success and happiness was to have everything perfectly planned out and executed. I thought that if I could just work hard enough, stay focused enough, be disciplined enough, I could bend the world to my will and create the life I wanted. But if there's one thing my divorce taught me, it's that life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. You can do everything right, follow all the rules, check all the boxes, and still find yourself in a situation you never saw coming. And in those moments, the illusion of control can actually be more harmful than helpful. Because when things don't go according to plan, which, spoiler alert, they rarely do, it's easy to beat yourself up, to feel like you've failed somehow. What I've learned is that true strength isn't about having everything under control. It's about being able to adapt and pivot when life throws you a curveball. It's about cultivating resilience, flexibility, and a trust in your own ability to handle whatever comes your way. Easier said than done, I know. But for me, it's been about learning to reframe challenges as opportunities for growth and learning. It's about choosing to focus on what I can control, my own thoughts, actions, and reactions, rather than getting wrapped up in all the external factors that are beyond my influence. And it's about embracing the uncertainty of life, rather than trying to fight against it. Because the truth is, uncertainty is where the magic happens. It's where we have the chance to surprise ourselves, to discover new strengths and passions, and possibilities. That's not to say it's easy, of course. Letting go of the need for control, embracing the unknown, it can be scary as hell. But in my experience, it's also where the greatest rewards lie. When I look back on my journey, I can see how each challenge, each unexpected detour, has been an opportunity for growth and transformation. Losing my marriage was devastating, yes, but it was also the catalyst that forced me to confront my own patterns and beliefs, to question what I really wanted out of life. And in the process of rebuilding myself and my world, I've discovered a strength and resilience I never knew I had. I've learned how to trust my own instincts, to listen to my inner voice even when it's scary or uncomfortable. I've learned how to set boundaries and advocate for my own needs and desires. And I've learned that I am worthy of love and happiness and fulfillment, not because of my achievements or my relationships or any external validation, but simply because I am. Those are the kind of lessons that you can't learn from a book or a class. They're the ones you have to live your way into, through trial and error and a whole lot of self-reflection. They're the ones that shape you from the inside out, that change the way you move through the world. And while I wouldn't wish the pain of betrayal and divorce on anyone, I can honestly say that I am grateful for the journey I've been on. Because it's brought me to a place of wholeness and authenticity and joy that I never could have imagined for myself before. So to anyone out there who's in the midst of their own upheaval, their own journey of transformation, know that you are not alone. Know that the path may be winding and rocky and full of unexpected detours, but also know that it's leading you somewhere beautiful. Trust the journey, embrace the uncertainty, and above all, be kind to yourself along the way. Because you, my friend, are worth it, worth the effort, worth the growth, worth all the love and happiness and fulfillment that this one wild and precious life has to offer. Keep going, keep growing, and know that with each step, you're getting closer and closer to the life you were always meant to live. You know, it's funny how life has a way of surprising you just when you think you've got it all figured out. Here, I was, feeling like I'd reached this place of hard-won wisdom and self-awareness, like I'd finally cracked the code on happiness and fulfillment. And then, well, the universe decided to throw me a curveball. It started with a phone call from my daughter, Emma. She'd just graduated from college and was feeling lost, unsure of what to do with her life. "Mom," she said, her voice shaky, "I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm supposed to have it all together, but I'm scared." Hearing the fear and uncertainty in her voice, I felt my heart clench. It took me right back to those early days after my divorce, when everything felt like it had been turned upside down and I didn't know which way was up. I remembered that feeling of being untethered, of questioning everything I thought I knew about myself and my place in the world. And in that moment, I realized that for all the growth and healing I'd done, for all the hard-won lessons I'd learned, I still had so much more to discover. About myself, about life, about what it means to be there for the people we love. Over the next few weeks, Emma and I talked a lot. I shared with her my own journey of self-discovery, the twists and turns I'd navigated in the years since my divorce. I told her about the importance of embracing uncertainty, of leaning into discomfort and trusting that growth and clarity would come in due time. But more than that, I listened. I held space for her fears and doubts, for her hopes and dreams. I resisted the urge to jump in with advice or solutions, remembering how important it had been for me to find my own way, to trust my own inner compass. And as we talked, as I witnessed my daughter's courage and vulnerability in the face of her own personal upheaval, I felt something shift within me. It was like I was seeing my own journey through fresh eyes, recognizing the power and beauty in the struggle, the transformation that comes from embracing the unknown. I realized that growth and healing aren't a one-time event, but a lifelong process, a series of expansions and contractions, of leaning in and letting go. And I saw that my role in Emma's journey wasn't to fix or direct, but to support and witness, to offer love and encouragement as she charted her own path. It wasn't always easy, of course. There were times when I wanted to jump in, to shield her from the pain and uncertainty I knew all too well. But I also knew that those experiences, as challenging as they were crucial to her own development and self-discovery. So I practiced being present, showing up for my daughter in the same way that my loved ones had shown up for me during my own difficult times. I sent care packages and handwritten notes, reminding her of her own strength and resilience. I made myself available for late-night phone calls and spontaneous visits, creating a safe space for her to process and explore. And slowly but surely, I watched as Emma began to find her own way. She took a job at a local nonprofit, working with underprivileged youth. She started painting again, a passion she'd set aside in the busyness of college life. She reached out to friends and mentors, building a support system of her own. Watching her navigate this new chapter, I felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude, not just for the remarkable young woman she was becoming, but for the journey that had brought us both to this place. I saw how the lessons I'd learned in my own life were now rippling out, offering guidance and inspiration to the next generation. And I realized that maybe that's what this whole journey of growth and transformation is really about. It's not just about finding our own way, but about lighting the path for others. It's about being a beacon of hope and resilience, a reminder that even the darkest of times can lead to beautiful new beginnings. As Emma and I continued to navigate our respective journeys, I found myself reflecting on the idea of legacy, the imprint we leave on the world and the lives we touch. I thought about all the people who had shaped my own path, from the friends and mentors who had offered support and guidance to the experiences and challenges that had forced me to grow in ways I never could have imagined, and I started to see my own story in a new light, not just as a personal narrative of overcoming adversity, but as part of a larger tapestry of human resilience and connection. I saw how my journey was intertwined with countless others, each of us navigating our own ups and downs, our own moments of darkness and light. With this newfound perspective, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and passion. I started seeking out opportunities to share my story, to connect with others who were going through their own difficult times. I volunteered at a local women's shelter, offering support and resources to those who were rebuilding their lives after abuse or trauma. I even started working on a book, putting the lessons and insights I'd gained into words that might offer hope and guidance to others. It was a daunting project, one that pushed me out of my comfort zone in all sorts of ways, but it also felt like a natural extension of the journey I'd been on, a way to pay forward the wisdom and resilience I'd cultivated over the years. Writing the book became a process of deep reflection and self-discovery in its own right. As I sifted through memories and experiences, I gained new insights into my own patterns and motivations. I saw how even the most challenging chapters of my life had held seeds of growth and transformation, how every struggle had ultimately led me to a deeper understanding of myself and my place in the world. And as the pages began to take shape, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey I'd been on, for the love and support of my family and friends, for the incredible resilience of the human spirit, and for the opportunity to share my story in a way that might make a difference in someone else's life. Of course, the process wasn't always easy. There were days when the words wouldn't come, when I doubted my own ability to do justice to the complexity of my experiences. There were moments when the vulnerability of sharing my story felt overwhelming, when I worried about the judgment or reactions of others. But through it all, I kept coming back to the core truth that had guided me through my own journey, that growth and healing are possible, even in the darkest of times, that by embracing our own stories, in all their messy and imperfect glory, we open ourselves up to connection, to transformation, to a deeper sense of meaning and purpose. And so I kept writing, kept showing up to the page, and to my own unfolding journey. I let myself be guided by the wisdom of my own heart, trusting that the story that needed to be told would find its way into the world. As the months passed and the book took shape, I found myself feeling a new sense of excitement and possibility. I had no idea how it would be received, what impact it might have on others. But I knew that the process of writing it had already changed me in profound ways, had helped me to integrate the lessons of my own journey, and to see the larger patterns and purpose at work in my life. And when the day finally came to hold the finished book in my hands, to see my own story reflected back to me in black and white, I felt a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. Not because I thought my story was unique or special, but because I knew it was part of a larger human story, a tapestry of resilience and growth and connection that we are all weaving together, one brave and beautiful strand at a time. Looking back now, I can see how every part of my journey, the pain and the joy, the struggles and the triumphs, has been an essential part of my own growth and transformation. And I know that this is just the beginning, that there are still so many more chapters to be written in my own story and in the larger story of human resilience and hope. But for now, I am grateful for the lessons I've learned, for the love and support that has carried me through, and for the opportunity to keep showing up, day after day, to the messy and magnificent work of being alive. And I am excited to see where this journey will take me next. What new possibilities and adventures await on the horizon? Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the story of our lives is never really finished. It's always unfolding, always inviting us to grow and change and discover new depths of courage and compassion within ourselves. And as long as we keep saying yes to that invitation, as long as we keep showing up to our own unique journey with open hearts and curious minds, there's no limit to the beauty and meaning we can create for ourselves, for each other, and for the world. So here's to the next chapter, my friends, and to all the twists and turns and unexpected blessings that await us on the road ahead. May we have the courage to keep exploring, keep growing, and keep saying yes to the adventure of our own becoming. And may we always remember that no matter where our individual paths may lead, we are all in this together, bound by the common threads of love and resilience and the enduring power of the human spirit. With every step, every stumble, every moment of triumph and transformation, we are weaving a story that is greater than any one of us, a story of hope and healing, and the incredible capacity of the human heart to rise above even the darkest of circumstances. And it is a story that belongs to all of us, a story that we are all invited to shape and share and celebrate in all its messy and magnificent glory. So let us keep writing, my friends. Let us keep showing up to the blank page of our own becoming, trusting that the words and the wisdom will come as we need them. Let us keep reaching out to each other, offering the light of our own hard-won truths to help guide the way. And most of all, let us keep believing in the power of our own stories, to heal, to transform, to connect us to something greater than ourselves. Because in the end, that is the real magic of this human journey, the chance to discover again and again the incredible resilience and beauty of our own souls, and to share that light with a world that needs it more than ever. We've got this, my friends. We've got each other. And we've got a story that is still unfolding, still inviting us to grow and change and rise, to meet each new chapter with courage and grace. So here's to the journey ahead, and to all the unexpected blessings and opportunities for transformation that await us on the road. May we have the wisdom to recognize them, the courage to embrace them, and the faith to keep going, even when the path is unclear. And may we always remember that no matter where our individual stories may lead, we are all part of a larger tale, a tale of hope and healing and the unshakable resilience of the human spirit. It's a story that belongs to all of us, and it's one that we are all invited to help write, one brave and beautiful chapter at a time. As I continued to reflect on my journey and the lessons I'd learned along the way, I found myself thinking more and more about the role of community in our lives. After all, none of us get through this wild ride of life alone. We all need people to lean on, to learn from, and to grow with. This idea really hit home for me when I started getting feedback on my book. As the first reviews and messages started rolling in, I was blown away by the stories people shared with me. Stories of their own struggles and triumphs, their own moments of darkness and light. It was like this beautiful reminder that no matter how isolated or alone we might feel at times, we are all connected by the common threads of human experience. We all know what it's like to face challenges, to feel lost or afraid or uncertain about the future. And we all have the capacity to rise above those challenges, to find strength and resilience in the face of adversity. But what really struck me was the power of sharing those stories with each other. The way that opening up about our own journeys can create space for others to do the same. It's like by showing up authentically and vulnerably, we give each other permission to be real, to be messy, to be works in progress. And in doing so, we create these incredible networks of support and understanding, these beautiful tapestries of shared experience that remind us that we are never truly alone. We are all part of something greater, all navigating this crazy, wonderful, heartbreaking, and awe-inspiring journey of life together. This idea of community and connection became even more important to me as I started navigating some new challenges in my personal life. You see, not long after my book came out, my mom was diagnosed with a serious illness, one that required a lot of care and support from our family. At first, I felt completely overwhelmed by the situation. Here I was, still navigating my own healing journey, and now I had to figure out how to show up for my mom in the way she needed. I worried about burning out, about letting everyone down, about not being strong enough to handle it all. But as I leaned into my own support system, my friends, my community, my own inner resilience, I started to see the situation in a new light. I realized that being there for my mom wasn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It was about showing up with love and compassion, about being present in the moment and offering whatever support I could. And I also realized that I didn't have to do it alone. Our family rallied together in the most beautiful way, taking turns, staying with Mom, coordinating her care, and making sure she had everything she needed. It was a powerful reminder of the incredible strength and resilience that can emerge when we come together in times of crisis. But it wasn't just our immediate family that stepped up. My mom's friends, our neighbors, even complete strangers who had heard about our situation, they all offered their support in ways big and small. Meals were dropped off, rides to appointments were arranged, and countless messages of love and encouragement flooded in from all directions. It was like this beautiful illustration of the power of community, the way that we can lift each other up and carry each other through even the toughest of times. And it reminded me that this is what life is really all about. Not the achievements or the accolades, but the connections we make, the love we share, the ways we show up for each other when it matters most. Through it all, I kept coming back to the lessons I'd learned on my own journey. The importance of self-care, of setting boundaries, of asking for help when I needed it. I knew that in order to be there for my mom and my family, I had to prioritize my own well-being too. So I made sure to carve out time for the things that nourished me. Quiet moments in nature, heart-to-heart conversations with friends, creative pursuits that allowed me to process my emotions. I learned to listen to my body and my intuition, to honor my own needs even as I showed up for others. And I also learned to lean into the uncertainty of the situation, to find peace in the present moment, even when the future felt scary or unknown. I practiced gratitude for the small joys and blessings that still managed to shine through, even on the hardest days. Slowly but surely, we found our way through that challenging chapter. My mom's health improved, and our family emerged, stronger and more connected than ever before. And I emerged with a deeper understanding of what it means to be part of a community, to give and receive support, to show up with love and vulnerability, to weather the storms of life together. Looking back on it now, I can see how that experience was another powerful lesson in resilience and growth. It taught me that we are all capable of rising to meet the challenges that come our way, and that we are never alone in facing them. We are all part of a larger web of connection and support, all navigating this beautiful, messy, unpredictable journey of life together. And just as my own journey of healing and self-discovery had rippled out to touch others, I saw how the love and resilience of our community had a ripple effect too. The meals and rides and messages of support that had lifted us up in our time of need, they inspired us to pay it forward, to look for ways to show up for others in their own moments of struggle. It was a reminder that even our smallest acts of kindness and compassion can have a profound impact, that by extending a hand or a heart to someone in need, we create these beautiful chains of love and support that stretch out in all directions. And it was also a reminder that our stories, the tales of our own resilience and growth, are never just our own. They are part of a larger tapestry of human experience, a collective narrative of hope and healing that we are all weaving together, one brave and beautiful thread at a time. So, as I continued on my own journey, I kept looking for ways to contribute to that tapestry, to share my own story, and to create space for others to do the same. I sought out opportunities to connect with people from all walks of life, to listen to their experiences and to offer support and encouragement wherever I could. And with each new connection, each new story shared, I felt my own sense of purpose and meaning grow deeper. I saw how the lessons I'd learned on my own path could offer guidance and inspiration to others, and how their stories and wisdom could do the same for me. It was like this beautiful dance of giving and receiving, of lifting each other up and learning from each other's journeys. And it reminded me that growth and healing are never a solo venture. They are a collaborative process, a shared exploration of what it means to be human in all our messy, magnificent glory. So here's what I've come to believe, after all these years of navigating the ups and downs of life. We are all in this together. We are all part of a larger story, a greater purpose that is unfolding with every breath and every step. And when we show up for each other with open hearts and curious minds, when we have the courage to share our own stories and to bear witness to the stories of others, we tap into a power and a wisdom that is greater than any one of us alone. We become part of a community of healing and growth, a network of support and resilience that can carry us through even the darkest of times. We become co-creators of a world that is more compassionate, more connected, more alive to the beauty and the possibility that surrounds us. And we become living proof of the incredible capacity of the human spirit to rise above adversity, to transform pain into purpose, and to find hope and meaning in even the most unexpected places. So let us keep showing up, my friends. Let us keep reaching out, keep sharing our stories, keep weaving the tapestry of our collective resilience and strength. Let us remember that we are all in this together, and that together there is nothing we cannot overcome. Because in the end, that is the real gift of this human journey. The chance to discover our own boundless capacity for growth and connection, and to use that capacity to create a world that is more loving, more just, and more beautiful than we ever could have imagined. It's a journey that belongs to all of us, and it's one that I am honored and grateful to be walking with you, every step of the way. You know, it's funny how life has a way of presenting us with opportunities to put our hard-earned wisdom into practice. Just when I thought I had a handle on this whole resilience and growth thing, the universe decided to throw me another curveball, and this one was a doozy. It all started with a phone call from my old friend Lila. We hadn't spoken in years, but as soon as I heard her voice, I knew something was wrong. She was calling from the hospital, where her teenage son, Max, had just been admitted after a serious car accident. Lila was beside herself with worry and fear, and I could hear the exhaustion and desperation in her voice. She didn't know where else to turn, she said. She needed someone who could understand what she was going through. Someone who had been through their own share of challenges and come out the other side. As I listened to her story, my heart broke for what she and her family were going through. And at the same time, I felt a deep sense of purpose welling up inside me, a knowing that this was exactly where I was meant to be, that all the lessons and experiences of my own journey had been preparing me for this moment. So I did what I had learned to do in times of crisis. I showed up. I hopped on the next flight out to be by Lila's side, ready to offer whatever support and guidance I could. And as I sat with her in that hospital waiting room, holding her hand and listening to her pour out her fears and her hopes, I was reminded, once again, of the incredible power of presence, of simply being there for someone in their time of need. Over the next few weeks, as Max slowly recovered from his injuries, I walked alongside Lila and her family on their own journey of healing and resilience. I helped them navigate the complex medical system, advocated for Max's needs with the doctors and nurses, and provided a listening ear and a shoulder to cry on whenever they needed it. But more than that, I shared with them the lessons I had learned on my own path, the importance of self-care, of leaning on community, of finding meaning and purpose even in the midst of chaos. I encouraged them to be gentle with themselves, to honor their own emotions and needs, even as they showed up for Max and each other. And as I watched them slowly start to put the pieces of their lives back together, I was struck by the incredible resilience of the human spirit, the way that even in the darkest of times, we have the capacity to find light and hope and meaning. It reminded me of something my therapist had told me years ago during my own journey of healing after my divorce. She talked about the concept of post-traumatic growth, the idea that we can actually emerge from challenging experiences with a greater sense of strength, purpose, and connection than we had before. It's like the Japanese art of kintsugi, she explained, the practice of repairing broken pottery with gold, silver, or platinum lacquer. The idea is that by embracing and even highlighting the cracks and scars, we create something even more beautiful and unique than the original piece. And isn't that what resilience is all about? It's not about bouncing back to who we were before the challenge or the trauma. It's about integrating those experiences into our story, allowing them to shape us and even transform us into a new version of ourselves. It's about finding beauty in the broken places, about claiming our scars as badges of honor and reminders of our strength. It's about discovering that we are capable of rising above even the toughest of circumstances, and that in doing so, we tap into a power and a wisdom that we never knew we had. Watching Lila and her family walk this path of post-traumatic growth was a powerful reminder of just how universal this human journey is. No matter what challenges we face, whether it's a divorce, a health crisis, a career setback, or any other kind of loss or upheaval, we all have the capacity to find our way through to the other side. And the more we share our stories with each other, the more we normalize this process of growth and transformation, the more we create a culture of resilience and support that can carry us all through even the darkest of times. This idea of normalizing the journey of growth and resilience became even more important to me as I continued to share my own story through my writing and speaking. So often, we have this idea that personal growth is supposed to be this linear, tidy process, that once we've overcome a challenge or healed from a wound, we should be fixed and ready to move on. But the truth is, growth is messy. It's nonlinear. It's unpredictable, and it's ongoing. We are all works in progress, all constantly evolving and changing and discovering new layers of ourselves. And that's not something to be ashamed of or to hide away. It's something to celebrate and embrace. One of the ways I tried to normalize this idea was by being honest about my own ongoing journey. The fact that even though I had come so far in my healing and self-discovery, I was still very much a work in progress. I shared stories of my own, struggles and setbacks, my own moments of doubt and fear and uncertainty. And in doing so, I found that it created this incredible space for connection and vulnerability, both for myself and for the people who were engaging with my work. It was like by showing up authentically and imperfectly, I gave others permission to do the same, to share their own stories, their own challenges, their own moments of messy, beautiful growth. It reminded me of a quote from one of my favorite authors, Brené Brown. Vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's our greatest measure of courage. And isn't that what this whole journey of resilience and growth is really about? It's about having the courage to show up as we are, scars and all, to embrace the uncertainty and the discomfort of growth, trusting that it will lead us somewhere new and beautiful. It's about leaning into vulnerability as a path to connection and healing, about recognizing that our stories have the power to change lives, both our own and those of the people around us. It's about claiming our place in the collective tapestry of human resilience, knowing that by showing up and sharing our truth, we make that tapestry stronger and more vibrant for everyone. This idea of collective resilience became a touchstone for me as I continued to navigate my own growth and healing alongside the people in my life. Whether it was supporting Lila and her family through Max's recovery, showing up for my own loved ones during times of challenge, or connecting with strangers through my work, I was constantly reminded of the power of community and connection in fostering resilience. And the more I leaned into this idea, the more I saw it reflected back to me in the world around me. I saw it in the way that people came together in times of crisis, offering support and resources and love to those who were struggling. I saw it in the way that communities rallied around causes and ideas that mattered to them, working together to create change and build a better world. And I saw it in the way that even the most unexpected connections could lead to profound healing and growth. The way that a conversation with a stranger or a chance encounter with a new idea could shift something deep within us, opening up new possibilities and perspectives that we never could have imagined. It was a reminder that we are all connected, all part of this larger web of resilience and support, and that by nurturing those connections, by showing up for each other with open hearts and minds, we tap into a power that is greater than any one of us alone. And it was also a reminder that resilience is not something that we have to cultivate all on our own. It is something that we can draw from the people and the world around us, something that we can share and celebrate and strengthen together. So, as I continued on my own journey of growth and healing, I made a conscious effort to seek out those connections, to build communities of support and resilience wherever I went. Whether it was through my writing and speaking, my volunteer work, or simply the way I showed up in my daily life, I looked for opportunities to foster that sense of collective strength and courage. And in doing so, I discovered a profound truth: that when we come together in the spirit of vulnerability and connection, when we have the courage to share our stories and our struggles with each other, we create a force for healing and transformation. That is truly unstoppable. We become part of something greater than ourselves, a movement of resilience and hope that has the power to change lives and shape the world around us. We become co-creators of a future that is more compassionate, more connected, more alive to the beauty and the possibility that exists within and between us. And we become living proof of the incredible capacity of the human spirit to rise above adversity, to find meaning and purpose in even the darkest of places, and to create something beautiful and new from the broken pieces of our lives. So let us keep showing up, my friends, for ourselves, for each other, and for the world that we want to create. Let us keep leaning into vulnerability as a path to connection and healing. Keep sharing our stories and our wisdom with courage and compassion. And let us remember that we are all in this together. That by nurturing our own resilience and supporting each other on this journey of growth and transformation, we tap into a power that is truly limitless. It's a journey that belongs to all of us, and it's one that I am honored and grateful to be walking with you every step of the way. As I continued to explore this idea of collective resilience and the power of shared stories, I found myself drawn to a new project, one that would challenge me to put these ideas into practice in a whole new way. It all started with a conversation with my friend Jenna, who worked at a local nonprofit that supported survivors of domestic violence. She was telling me about the incredible women she worked with, women who had faced unimaginable trauma and abuse, but who had found the strength to leave their abusers and start building new lives for themselves. But one of the biggest challenges these women faced, Jenna explained, was the sense of isolation and shame that often came with their experiences. So many of them felt alone in their struggles, like they were the only ones who had ever gone through something like this. As I listened to Jenna talk, I felt a spark of inspiration ignite within me. What if we could find a way to bring these women together, to create a space where they could share their stories and their wisdom with each other? What if we could help them see that they were part of a larger community of survivors, a tapestry of resilience and strength that stretched far beyond their individual experiences? The idea took hold of me and wouldn't let go. I started brainstorming with Jenna about what this might look like. Maybe a series of workshops or support groups, a chance for these women to come together and learn from each other's journeys. But as we talked, I realized that I wanted to take it a step further. I wanted to find a way to share these women's stories with the wider world, to amplify their voices and their resilience in a way that could inspire and empower others who might be facing similar challenges. And that's how the idea for the book was born. A collection of stories and wisdom from survivors of domestic violence, woven together with insights and reflections from my own journey of healing and growth. It was a daunting project, to be sure. I knew that it would require a deep level of vulnerability and trust from the women who chose to share their stories. And I knew that I would have to approach it with the utmost care and sensitivity, creating a safe and supportive space for these brave survivors to share their truths. But I also knew that it had the potential to be incredibly powerful, not just for the women themselves, but for anyone who might pick up the book and find a glimmer of hope or recognition in its pages. So I dove in, working closely with Jenna and the team at the nonprofit to reach out to survivors and invite them to be part of the project. And slowly but surely, the stories started coming in, raw, honest, and deeply moving accounts of resilience in the face of unimaginable odds. There was Sarah, who had endured years of physical and emotional abuse from her partner before finally finding the courage to leave. She talked about how joining a support group for survivors had been a turning point for her, how hearing other women's stories had helped her realize that she wasn't alone, and that there was life and hope on the other side of the trauma. There was Maria, who had fled her abuser with her 2 young children and rebuilt her life from scratch. She shared how she had found strength in her faith and her community, how she had learned to trust herself and her own intuition even when the world around her was telling her she was worthless. And there was Ling, who had survived years of sexual abuse at the hands of a family member. Just when I thought I had a handle on this whole resilience thing, the universe decided to throw me a curveball that would challenge me to put all my hard-earned wisdom to the test. It all started with a phone call from my sister, Kate. She had been going through a rough patch in her marriage and had finally made the difficult decision to leave her husband after years of struggling to make things work. As she poured out her heart to me over the phone, I could hear the mix of emotions in her voice, the fear and uncertainty, the grief and the guilt, but also the glimmer of hope and relief that comes with finally making a choice to prioritize your own well-being. It reminded me so much of my own journey through divorce, all those years ago. The roller coaster of emotions, the sense of having your world turned upside down, the fear of starting over, and the simultaneous excitement of a fresh start. But here's the thing about resilience. It's not something that we acquire once and then never have to work at again. It's a muscle that we have to keep strengthening, a practice that we have to keep coming back to, no matter how far along we are in our journey. And what I've come to realize is that one of the most powerful ways we can strengthen our resilience is by showing up for others in their times of need, by offering our support, our wisdom, and our compassion to those who are going through their own struggles. So when Kate asked if she could come stay with me for a while, to get some distance and perspective as she navigated this new chapter in her life, I didn't hesitate to say yes. Having her there was a journey in itself. It brought up a lot of memories and emotions from my own divorce. The late-night conversations over tea, the tears and the laughter, the moments of fear and doubt, and the moments of clarity and strength. But it was also an opportunity for me to share some of what I had learned on my own journey, to offer Kate the tools and the insights that had helped me to weather my own storms. We talked a lot about the importance of self-compassion, of treating yourself with kindness and understanding even when things are tough. It's so easy to fall into the trap of self-blame and self-criticism when we're going through a hard time, to feel like we've failed somehow, like we're not enough. But what I've learned is that beating ourselves up only makes things harder. It drains our energy and our resilience, and keeps us stuck in a cycle of negativity and self-doubt. So, I encouraged Kate to practice self-compassion, to speak to herself like she would to a dear friend going through a difficult time, to offer herself the same grace and understanding that she would extend to someone she loved. We also talked about the power of leaning into our support systems, of reaching out to friends and family, of finding communities of people who can relate to what we're going through and offer us guidance and encouragement. When we're in the midst of a crisis or a major life transition, it can be so tempting to isolate ourselves, to feel like we have to go through it alone, like we're a burden to others or like no one could possibly understand what we're feeling. But what I've found is that opening up to others, even when it feels vulnerable or scary, can be one of the most powerful things we can do for our own healing and growth. When we share our stories and our struggles with each other, we create a web of connection and support that can carry us through even the toughest of times. We remind ourselves that we're not alone, that there are others who have walked this path before us and who can offer us wisdom and guidance along the way, and we also open ourselves up to the possibility of being that support for someone else, of using our own experiences and insights to help light the way for others who are going through their own dark nights of the soul. That's what I tried to be for Kate during her stay with me: a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on, a source of guidance and perspective when she needed it most. And in the process, I found that I was also learning and growing in ways I hadn't expected. Seeing her resilience and her courage in the face of such a major life upheaval reminded me of my own strength and helped me to tap into a deeper well of compassion and understanding within myself. It also reminded me of the incredible power of storytelling and shared experience, the way that our stories can become a source of healing and connection, not just for ourselves, but for others who might be struggling with similar challenges. One evening, as Kate and I were sitting out on the porch sipping tea and watching the sunset, she turned to me with tears in her eyes and said, "I don't know how I would have gotten through this without you, sis. Hearing your story, seeing how far you've come and how much you've grown, it gives me hope that I can come out the other side of this too." That moment stayed with me long after Kate had gone back home to start rebuilding her life. It reminded me that our stories have power, that by sharing them with each other, we can offer hope and inspiration and comfort to those who need it most. And it also reminded me that resilience is not a solo journey, that we are all in this together, all part of a larger web of connection and support that can help us weather any storm. Since then, I've made a conscious effort to keep sharing my story, not just the highlight reel, but the messy, imperfect, beautiful reality of what it means to walk this path of growth and healing. I've given talks and workshops, written articles, and blog posts, had countless conversations with friends and strangers alike, all in the hopes of offering a glimmer of hope or insight to someone who might be struggling, and of reminding myself and others that we are never alone in our journeys. Because at the end of the day, that's what resilience is all about. It's about learning to weather the storms of life with grace and courage, to find meaning and purpose in even the toughest of times, and to lean on each other when we need it most. It's about recognizing that we are all works in progress, that growth and healing are never a straight line, but a winding path full of twists and turns and detours. And it's about having faith that no matter how dark the night may seem, dawn will always come, and that we have the strength and the wisdom within us to keep putting one foot in front of the other, to keep showing up for ourselves and for each other, and to keep weaving the tapestry of our shared resilience, one story at a time. So to anyone out there who might be going through their own tough times, who might be feeling lost or alone or unsure of the way forward, know that you are not alone. Know that your story matters, and that by sharing it with others, you have the power to create ripples of hope and healing that extend far beyond yourself. And know that no matter how many times you stumble or fall, no matter how many detours you have to take on this winding path of growth and resilience, you have everything you need within you to keep going, to keep rising, to keep creating a life of meaning and purpose and joy. Because at the end of the day, that's what this journey is all about. It's about learning to trust ourselves and each other, to lean into the discomfort and the uncertainty, and to have faith that no matter what challenges come our way, we have the strength and the wisdom to meet them with courage and grace. And it's about remembering that we are all in this together, that by showing up for ourselves and for each other with open hearts and minds, we can create a world of greater compassion, connection, and resilience, one story at a time. So keep showing up, my friends. Keep sharing your stories. Keep leaning on each other. Keep believing in your own strength and wisdom and resilience. And know that no matter where your path may lead, you are never alone. That there is a whole community of fellow travelers walking beside you, cheering you on, and holding space for your journey, every step of the way. As I continued on my journey of growth and resilience, I found myself constantly amazed by the power of connection and community in helping us weather life's storms. It seemed like everywhere I looked, I saw examples of people coming together to support each other through difficult times, whether it was friends showing up for each other during a health crisis, neighbors rallying around a family who had lost their home, or strangers stepping up to lend a helping hand to those in need. One particularly powerful example of this came from an unexpected place, my local community garden. I had started volunteering there as a way to get outside, connect with nature, and give back to my community in a tangible way. Little did I know that it would end up teaching me some of the most valuable lessons about resilience and growth. You see, community gardens are these incredible microcosms of diversity and interdependence. You've got all these different plants growing side by side, tomatoes and peppers, squash and beans, herbs and flowers of every color and shape imaginable. And on the surface, they might not seem to have much in common. They have different needs, different growth patterns, different challenges that they face. But what I've come to realize is that it's precisely this diversity that makes a garden thrive. Each plant has its own unique role to play in the ecosystem. Some help to enrich the soil, others attract beneficial insects, still others provide shade or support for their neighbors. And together, they create this incredibly resilient, vibrant, and productive community. It's a lot like what we see in human communities when you think about it. We all have our own unique strengths and challenges, our own needs and growth patterns, and it can be easy to focus on our differences, to see them as barriers to connection and understanding. But what if we chose to see our diversity as a source of strength? What if we recognized that just like in a garden, our differences are precisely what make us resilient and adaptable, able to weather any storm that comes our way? This idea really hit home for me one day when I was working in the garden alongside a group of fellow volunteers. We were all from different backgrounds and walks of life, different ages, races, genders, and life experiences. And at first, I wasn't sure how well we would work together or how much we would have in common. But as we got our hands dirty and started planting and weeding and watering, something incredible happened. We started to talk and laugh and share stories, finding common ground in our love for the garden and our desire to make a difference in our community. And before I knew it, we had formed this incredible bond, one that transcended our surface level differences and tapped into something much deeper and more powerful. It reminded me of a quote from the poet Gwendolyn Brooks. "We are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond." In other words, we are all interconnected. Our lives and our stories are woven together in ways that we may not always see or understand, but that nonetheless shape who we are and how we show up in the world. And when we choose to lean into that interconnectedness, when we cultivate it and nurture it like a garden, incredible things can happen. We find strength in our diversity, resilience in our shared struggles, and growth in our collective wisdom. This idea of interconnectedness became a central theme in my work and my life in the months and years that followed. I started to see it everywhere, in the way that a kind word from a stranger could brighten someone's day, in the way that a small act of generosity could ripple out and touch countless lives, in the way that our stories and our struggles could become a source of healing and hope for others. And I also started to see it in my own journey of resilience and growth. I realized that every challenge I had faced, every obstacle I had overcome, was not just a personal victory. It was also a testament to the power of connection and community. When I was going through my divorce, it was the love and support of My friends and family that helped me to keep going, even on the darkest days. When I was struggling to find my purpose and my passion, it was the wisdom and encouragement of mentors and colleagues that helped me to trust my own voice and vision. And when I was working to build my platform and share my message with the world, it was the feedback and engagement of my audience that helped me to refine and strengthen my ideas. In other words, my resilience was not just a product of my own individual strength and determination. It was also a reflection of the incredible web of support and connection that surrounded me, lifting me up and helping me to grow in ways I never could have imagined. And the more I leaned into this idea of interconnectedness, the more I found myself drawn to opportunities to create and cultivate community in my own life and work. I started hosting events and workshops, creating spaces for people to come together and share their stories and their wisdom. I collaborated with other writers and speakers and activists, finding strength and inspiration in our shared passion for creating a more just and compassionate world. And I continued to volunteer and give back to my local community, recognizing that every small act of kindness and generosity had the power to create ripples of positive change. Through it all, I was constantly reminded of the incredible power of resilience, not just as an individual trait, but as a collective one. When we come together in the face of adversity, when we lean on each other and lift each other up, we are capable of overcoming even the greatest of challenges. And we are also capable of creating something beautiful and transformative in the process. A world where everyone has the support and the resources they need to thrive. Where our differences are celebrated as a source of strength. And where our stories and our struggles become a tapestry of hope and healing. It's not always easy, of course. Building community, cultivating resilience, showing up for ourselves and for each other. It takes work and vulnerability and courage. It means being willing to step outside of our comfort zones, to have difficult conversations, to face our own fears and doubts head on. But what I've come to believe is that it's always worth it. Because when we do that work, when we lean into the discomfort and the uncertainty, when we trust in the power of connection and community, incredible things can happen. We find strength we never knew we had, wisdom we never knew we needed, and hope we never knew was possible. We create a world that is more resilient, more compassionate, and more beautiful than we ever could have imagined. And we discover that, no matter what challenges come our way, we are never alone. That we are all part of a larger story, a greater tapestry of resilience and growth and healing. So let us keep weaving that tapestry, my friends. Let us keep cultivating resilience in ourselves and in each other, keep building communities of support and connection and hope. And let us always remember that, just like in a garden, our diversity is our strength. That by coming together in all our beautiful, messy, imperfect humanity, we have the power to create something truly extraordinary. It's a journey that belongs to all of us, and it's one that I am honored and grateful to be walking with you every step of the way. You know, it's funny. The more I learned about resilience and the power of community, the more I started to see parallels between the growth and evolution of individuals and the growth and evolution of the world around us. It was like everywhere I looked, I saw examples of how the same principles that guide our personal journeys of healing and transformation are also at work on a much larger scale. Take nature, for example. Have you ever noticed how even in the most challenging of environments, the harshest deserts, the coldest tundras, the most barren landscapes, life always seems to find a way to adapt and thrive? It's like there's this incredible resilience built into the very fabric of the natural world, a resilience that allows it to weather any storm and emerge stronger and more beautiful on the other side. I remember learning about this concept called ecological succession in a science class once. The idea is that after a major disturbance, like a wildfire or a volcanic eruption, the ecosystem doesn't just bounce back to the way it was before. Instead, It goes through this gradual process of rebuilding and transformation, with different species and communities of organisms emerging and evolving over time. At first, you might see these pioneer species, hardy little plants and insects, that are able to colonize the barren landscape and start the process of rebuilding the soil and the ecosystem. And then, as the soil becomes richer and more stable, more complex communities start to emerge: grasses and shrubs, then small trees and larger animals. Over time, the ecosystem becomes more and more diverse and resilient, with each species playing a unique and vital role in maintaining the health and balance of the whole. And while the end result might look very different from the ecosystem that existed before the disturbance, it is often more adaptable and resilient as a result of the challenges it has faced. It's a lot like what we experience in our own lives. When you think about it, we all go through these major disruptions and challenges, whether it's a divorce or a job loss, a health crisis or a personal tragedy. And in the moment, it can feel like our entire world has been turned upside down, like we'll never be able to recover or move forward. But just like in nature, we have this incredible capacity for resilience and growth. We start by rebuilding the basic foundations, surrounding ourselves with supportive people, creating structure and stability in our daily lives, nourishing ourselves with healthy habits and self-care. And then, gradually, we start to emerge into something new. We develop new strengths and skills, form new relationships and communities, discover new passions and purposes. We become more adaptable, more resilient, more capable of weathering whatever challenges come our way. It's not always a linear process, of course. There are setbacks and stumbling blocks, moments when we feel like we're sliding backwards instead of moving ahead. But over time, we start to see the progress we've made, the ways in which we've grown and evolved, the new possibilities that have emerged from the ashes of our old lives. And just like in an ecosystem, our resilience and growth is not just a matter of individual strength or willpower. It's also deeply interconnected with the health and vitality of the communities and the world around us. The more diverse and interconnected our social ecosystems are, the more resilient and adaptable we become. When we have a wide range of people and perspectives to learn from and lean on, when we are part of communities that support and challenge us to grow, we are better able to weather any storm that comes our way. And in turn, our own growth and resilience contributes to the health and vitality of those communities, creating a positive feedback loop of support and empowerment that lifts us all up. This idea of interconnectedness and mutual support became even more clear to me as I started to explore the world of social and environmental activism. I saw how so many of the challenges we face as individuals, from mental health struggles to economic insecurity, are deeply rooted in larger systemic issues like inequality and injustice, oppression and marginalization. And I also saw how the same principles of resilience and adaptability that I had learned in my own journey were being applied on a much larger scale, in the work of grassroots organizers and community leaders, in the movements for social and environmental justice that were emerging all around the world. I remember attending a rally for climate justice, where I heard a young activist speak about the concept of resilience-based organizing. She talked about how the traditional model of activism often focused on resisting and opposing the systems of oppression and exploitation, a necessary and important task, but one that could also be draining and demoralizing in the face of such entrenched power structures. Resilience-based organizing, on the other hand, focused on building the kind of world we want to see, creating alternative systems and structures that are more just, more sustainable, and more resilient. It was about nourishing and empowering communities to take care of each other and the planet, to create a world where everyone can thrive. And in the same way that ecological succession creates more diverse and resilient ecosystems over time, this kind of organizing was about planting the seeds of a new world, one that is more equitable, more compassionate, and more in harmony with the natural systems that sustain us. It was a powerful reminder that our personal journeys of resilience and growth are not separate from the larger struggles for social and environmental justice. They are deeply interconnected, each one informing and inspiring the other. And it was also a reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a more resilient and sustainable world. Whether it's through our individual choices and actions, our involvement in our communities, or our participation in larger movements for change. Just like in an ecosystem, every small act of kindness and courage, every decision to prioritize our own well-being and the well-being of others, every step we take towards a more just and compassionate world, it all matters, and it all contributes to the larger web of resilience and regeneration. Of course, this kind of work is not always easy. Just like in our personal journeys of growth and healing, there are setbacks and challenges, moments of doubt and despair. The forces of oppression and exploitation are powerful, and the road to a more just and sustainable world is long and winding. But what I've come to believe is that the same qualities that allow us to weather the storms of our own lives, the courage and compassion, the adaptability and resilience, the interconnectedness, and mutual support, are also the qualities that will allow us to create a better world for all. And just like in nature, even the smallest seeds of change can grow into something beautiful and transformative over time. If we have the patience and the persistence to keep tending them, to keep showing up for ourselves and for each other, to keep believing in the possibility of a world where everyone can thrive. So let us keep planting those seeds, my friends. In our own lives and in the world around us, let us keep cultivating resilience and regeneration, justice and compassion, hope and possibility. And let us always remember that we are part of something much larger than ourselves. A great turning, a global movement towards a more just and sustainable world, a beautiful and complex ecosystem of change and growth and healing. It's a journey that belongs to all of us, and it's one that I am honored and grateful to be walking with you every step of the way. As I continued to explore the interconnectedness of personal and collective resilience, I found myself drawn to the concept of emergence, the idea that complex systems and patterns can arise spontaneously from relatively simple interactions. It's a concept that shows up everywhere once you start looking for it. In the flocking patterns of birds, the organization of ant colonies, the growth of cities and social movements. And the more I learned about emergence, the more I started to see it as a powerful metaphor for the way that our individual journeys of growth and healing are woven into the larger tapestry of social and systemic change. Think about it like this. Imagine you're looking at a flock of starlings in flight. From a distance, it looks like this incredible, unified whole, a shimmering, undulating mass that moves as if it has a mind of its own. But when you zoom in closer, you see that it's actually made up of thousands of individual birds, each one following a few simple rules, like staying a certain distance from its neighbors and aligning its speed and direction with the flock. And yet, from those simple rules, these incredibly complex and beautiful patterns emerge, patterns that are greater than the sum of their parts, that have a kind of intelligence and adaptability that no single bird could achieve on its own. It's a lot like what happens in our own lives and communities, when you think about it. We each have our own unique experiences, our own struggles and triumphs, our own ways of moving through the world. And yet, when we come together in community, when we start to align our intentions and our actions, when we support and challenge each other to grow, something incredible starts to happen. We start to see patterns and possibilities that we couldn't have seen on our own. We start to create systems and structures that are more resilient, more adaptable, more able to weather the storms of change and uncertainty. We start to tap into a kind of collective intelligence and wisdom that is greater than any one of us could have accessed alone. And just like with the starlings, this emergence is not something that happens all at once or in a predictable, linear way. It's a gradual, iterative process, one that is shaped by the unique contributions and interactions of each individual, but that also has a kind of self-organizing property, a tendency to evolve and adapt over time. I saw this dynamic at play in so many of the communities and movements I was a part of. From the grassroots organizing groups that were working to build more just and sustainable food systems, to the mutual aid networks that were providing support and care for those most impacted by the pandemic. In each case, there was no single leader or mastermind directing the action from above. Instead, there was a kind of distributed intelligence and creativity, a network of individuals and groups working together in ways that were often messy and improvisational, but that were also incredibly effective and resilient. And what I started to realize was that this kind of emergent, collaborative model of social change was not just a nice idea or a feel-good slogan. It was actually a powerful and necessary paradigm shift, one that challenged the dominant models of hierarchy and control, and that recognized the inherent complexity and interdependence of the systems we are trying to change. Because the truth is, the challenges we face as a society, from climate change to racial injustice to economic inequality, are not problems that can be solved by any one person or group, no matter how brilliant or well-intentioned they may be. They are systemic issues that are deeply rooted in the very structures and paradigms of our society, and that require a kind of collective, emergent response that taps into the wisdom and creativity of everyone. And the same is true, I believe, for our own personal journeys of growth and transformation. We are not islands unto ourselves, separate and disconnected from the world around us. We are part of a larger web of relationships and communities, a larger ecosystem of change and possibility. And just as the health and resilience of an ecosystem depends on the diversity and interconnectedness of its parts, our own resilience and growth is deeply interwoven with the resilience and growth of those around us. This is why, for me, the work of personal transformation and the work of social change are not separate endeavors, but rather two sides of the same coin. When we do the hard work of healing our own traumas and wounds, of cultivating our own inner resilience and wholeness, we are not just changing ourselves, we are also contributing to the healing and transformation of the world around us. And when we show up in our communities and our movements with that same spirit of healing and wholeness, when we bring our full selves to the work of creating a more just and life-affirming world, we are not just changing the world, but also continuing to grow and transform ourselves in the process. It's a beautiful and sacred feedback loop, one that recognizes the deep interconnectedness of all life and that calls us to a kind of radical responsibility and care for ourselves, for each other, and for the world we share. And it's a loop that I have seen play out again and again in my own life and work, in the moments of breakthrough and transformation that have come when I was able to bring my own healing and growth to bear on the larger challenges and possibilities of my community, and in the ways that my community has in turn supported and nourished my own ongoing journey of resilience and wholeness. Of course, this kind of emergent, interconnected model of change is not always easy or comfortable. It requires a kind of surrender and trust, a willingness to let go of our need for control and certainty, and to embrace the unknown and the unpredictable. It asks us to show up in our vulnerability and our imperfection, to risk failure and disappointment, to keep learning and unlearning and growing even when it's hard. But what I've found is that it's also a model that is deeply life-giving and joyful, that connects us to a sense of meaning and purpose that is larger than ourselves, and that allows us to tap into a kind of collective power and possibility that is truly transformative. And in a world that is facing such profound challenges and uncertainties, in a time when the old ways of doing things are so clearly failing us, I believe that this kind of emergent, collaborative, heart-centered approach to change is not just a nice idea, but an urgent necessity. It's the way forward, the path to a world that is more just and sustainable, more compassionate and creative, more able to honor the sacred interdependence of all life. And it's a path that is open to all of us, no matter where we come from or what we've been through. Because each of us has a unique role to play, a unique gift to offer, in the larger story of healing and transformation that is unfolding all around us. So let us keep showing up, my friends. Let us keep doing the work of healing and growth in our own lives and in the world around us. Let us keep trusting in the power of emergence, the wisdom of the collective, the resilience of the human spirit. And let us never forget that we are all in this together, that our liberation is bound up with the liberation of all beings, and that every small act of courage and compassion, every choice to show up with an open heart and a willingness to grow, is a part of the great turning, the great healing that our world so desperately needs. You know, the more I explored this idea of emergence and the power of interconnected systems, the more I started to see it everywhere, not just in the natural world and in social movements, but in my own life and relationships as well. It was like once I had this new lens to look through, I couldn't unsee the patterns and possibilities that had been there all along. One of the places where this really hit home for me was in my relationship with my teenage daughter, Mia. Like a lot of parents of adolescents, I had been struggling to connect with her, to find ways to support her growth and independence while still maintaining our bond. It felt like we were constantly butting heads, getting stuck in these frustrating cycles of misunderstanding and conflict. But as I started to learn more about emergence and systems thinking, I began to see our relationship in a new light. Instead of seeing Mia's pushback and boundary testing as a personal affront or a sign of disrespect, I started to understand it as a natural part of her own journey of growth and individuation, a way of testing the limits of the system we had created, together as a family, and of finding her own place and identity within it. And instead of trying to control or dictate her behavior, I started to focus more on creating the conditions for a healthy, resilient relationship to emerge. One that could weather the ups and downs of the teenage years, and that could support both of our needs for connection and autonomy. In practice, this looked like a lot of different things. It meant having more open and honest conversations, even when they were uncomfortable. It meant setting clear boundaries and expectations, but also being willing to renegotiate them as needed. It meant finding ways to spend quality time together, doing things we both enjoyed. And it meant working on my own growth and healing so that I could show up as a more grounded and compassionate presence in her life. At first, it wasn't always easy. There were times when I slipped back into old patterns of control or criticism, times when Mia pushed back harder than ever. But slowly, gradually, I started to see a shift, not just in Mia's behavior, but in the overall dynamic of our relationship. It was like we were finding a new rhythm, a new way of being together that wasn't about one of us being right and the other wrong, or one of us calling all the shots. It was more fluid and dynamic, more responsive to both of our needs and perspectives. And while it wasn't always perfect, it felt more authentic and life-giving than anything I had experienced before. As I reflected on this shift, I realized that it was a lot like the kind of emergence I had been learning about in my studies and my activism. By focusing on the health of the overall system, the safety and trust of our relationship, rather than trying to micromanage every interaction, I had created the conditions for something new and resilient to emerge, something that was greater than the sum of its parts. And I also realized that this kind of emergence wasn't a one-time event, but an ongoing process, one that required me to keep showing up, keep learning and growing, keep adapting to the changing needs and dynamics of our relationship over time. It was a powerful reminder that, just like in the larger systems we are a part of, our personal relationships are not static or fixed, but rather living, evolving entities that require ongoing care and attention. And it was also a reminder that, when we approach them with a spirit of emergence, with a willingness to let go of control, to embrace the unknown, to trust in the inherent wisdom and resilience of the system, we open ourselves up to a kind of growth and transformation that is truly miraculous. Of course, this kind of emergence-based approach to relationships isn't always easy, and it doesn't always unfold in predictable or linear ways. Just like in nature, there are times of chaos and disruption, times when the old patterns break down and the new ones haven't yet emerged. And there are times when we have to confront our own shadows and blind spots, when we have to do the hard work of healing and growth in order to show up more fully and authentically in our connections with others. But what I've found is that when we are willing to do that work, when we are willing to lean into the discomfort and uncertainty of change, to trust in the inherent resilience and wisdom of ourselves and others, we tap into a kind of magic and possibility that is truly transformative. We start to see our relationships not as something to be managed or controlled, but as a source of ongoing learning and growth, a mirror that reflects back to us our own beauty and imperfection. We start to experience a kind of intimacy and connection that is not based on sameness or agreement, but on a deep honoring of each other's unique journey and perspective. And we start to create the kind of world we want to live in, one that is more compassionate and cooperative, more responsive to the needs and voices of all its members. And the beautiful thing is, this kind of emergence doesn't just happen in our personal relationships. It can also happen in our larger communities and social systems, when we approach them with the same spirit of openness and care. I've seen it happen in my own community, as people have come together to support each other through the challenges of the pandemic, creating mutual aid networks, sharing resources and care, finding creative ways to connect and collaborate even in the face of social distancing and isolation. I've seen it happen in the larger movements for social and ecological justice, as people from all walks of life have joined together to demand a more equitable and sustainable world, creating new alliances and coalitions, developing innovative strategies and solutions, building the kind of people power that can truly change the world. And I've seen it happen in my own heart and mind, as I've continued to do the work of healing and growth, of learning to trust in the inherent goodness and resilience of myself and others, of finding my own place and purpose in the larger web of life. Because that's the thing about emergence. It's not just something that happens out there, in the abstract or the impersonal. It's something that happens within us and between us, in the moments of connection and care, in the choices we make to show up with authenticity and courage, in the ways we learn to dance with the ever-changing rhythms of life. And the more we attune ourselves to that dance, the more we learn to trust in the wisdom of emergence, to embrace the beauty and complexity of the systems we are a part of. The more we open ourselves up to a kind of magic and possibility that is truly breathtaking. So let us keep dancing, my friends. Let us keep showing up for ourselves and for each other, with open hearts and curious minds. Let us keep learning and growing and evolving in all the ways that life invites us to. And let us remember that no matter how alone or disconnected we may feel at times, we are all part of something larger, a great unfolding, a sacred emergence that is always calling us home to ourselves and to each other. It's a journey that belongs to all of us, and it's one that I am honored and grateful to be sharing with you every step of the way. You know, as I've continued to explore this idea of emergence and the way it shows up in our lives and relationships, I keep coming back to one key realization. Emergence is not just about the end result, the new patterns or possibilities that arise from the interactions of a system. It's also about the process itself, the way that change unfolds over time, the way that each moment and each choice shapes the larger whole. I think about this a lot in the context of my own journey of growth and transformation. For so long, I had been focused on the outcome, the destination, on getting to a place where I had it all figured out, where I was finally healed or enlightened, or whatever other idealized state I had in mind. But the more I leaned into the process of emergence, the more I started to see that growth isn't really about arriving at some fixed point, but rather about becoming more and more attuned to the constant unfolding of life. It's like the difference between trying to control a garden and learning to work with the natural rhythms and processes of the earth. When we try to control every aspect of a garden, when we micromanage every seed and every weed, when we try to force it to conform to some preconceived plan, we often end up creating more problems than we solve. We disrupt the delicate balance of the ecosystem. We stifle the inherent intelligence and creativity of the plants and soil. But when we learn to work with the emergent properties of a garden, when we pay attention to the unique needs and qualities of each plant, when we create the conditions for healthy growth and let nature take its course, we open ourselves up to a kind of abundance and vitality that is truly amazing. We get to witness the incredible resilience and adaptability of life, the way that even the tiniest seed can grow into a magnificent tree, the way that even the most barren patch of earth can spring forth with new growth and possibility. And I think the same is true for our own growth and transformation. When we fixate on the end goal, the idealized version of ourselves that we think we should be, we often end up getting in our own way. We judge ourselves harshly for not being there yet. We try to force ourselves into some predetermined mold. We shut ourselves off from the organic unfolding of our own becoming. But when we learn to trust in the process of emergence, when we show up each day with curiosity and openness, when we pay attention to the small shifts and insights that arise in each moment, when we create the conditions for our own flourishing, and let the journey unfold in its own way, we open ourselves up to a kind of growth and transformation that is truly miraculous. We start to see that every experience, every challenge, every moment of discomfort or uncertainty is not an obstacle to be overcome, but an invitation to learn and evolve. We start to appreciate the incredible diversity and complexity of our own inner landscape, the way that even our shadows and struggles can be doorways to new insight and understanding. And we start to experience a kind of wholeness and integration that is not about perfection, but about embracing the fullness of who we are in all our messy, beautiful humanity. Of course, this kind of emergence-based approach to growth is not always easy, and it requires a great deal of patience and trust. Just like in a garden, there are times when the growth is slow or invisible, times when we have to weather storms and droughts and all kinds of unexpected challenges, and there are times when we have to confront our own resistance and fear, when we have to let go of old stories and identities in order to make space for something new to emerge. But what I've found is that when we are willing to do that work, when we are willing to show up fully and authentically, to lean into the discomfort and uncertainty of change, to trust in the inherent wisdom and resilience of our own becoming, we tap into a kind of aliveness and creativity that is truly transformative. We start to experience a sense of flow and synchronicity, a feeling that we are part of something larger than ourselves. We start to notice the subtle ways that our own growth and healing ripples out to touch the lives of others, the way that our own emergence is interconnected with the emergence of the world around us. And we start to feel a sense of purpose and meaning that is not about achieving some external goal, but about participating fully in the great unfolding of life. It's like one of my favorite quotes from the poet Rainer Maria Rilke. "The only journey is the one within." When we learn to approach our own growth and transformation as an ongoing process of emergence, as a journey of continual unfolding and revelation, we open ourselves up to a kind of beauty and mystery that is truly breathtaking. We start to see that our own becoming is not separate from the becoming of the world, that our own healing and awakening is intimately connected to the healing and awakening of all beings. And we start to experience a kind of love and compassion that is not just for ourselves, but for the whole of life, a fierce and tender commitment to the flourishing of all things. So as we continue on this journey of emergence, both individually and collectively, let us remember to be patient and present, to trust in the organic unfolding of our own growth and transformation. Let us create the conditions for our own wholeness and liberation, and for the healing and renewal of the world around us. And let us embrace the incredible beauty and mystery of this ever-emerging journey, the wonder and the heartbreak, the struggle and the grace, the joy and the sorrow of being alive. Because in the end, that is what emergence is all about, the sacred and miraculous process of life itself, forever creating and recreating itself in each moment, in each breath, in each one of us. It is the great adventure of our becoming, the deep and abiding call to join the dance of existence, to take our place in the vast and vibrant web of interconnection and possibility. And it is an adventure that belongs to all of us, an invitation that is forever open and beckoning us forward. So let us say yes, my friends. Let us keep showing up, keep reaching out, keep leaning into the fullness and the mystery of this one wild and precious life. And let us do so together, as individuals and as communities, as part of the larger ecology of healing and transformation that is forever unfolding within us and around us. For we are all in this together, all part of the same sacred story, the same great emergence that is life itself. What a gift it is to be here, to be part of this journey. What a privilege and a responsibility to participate in the unfolding of our own becoming and the becoming of the world. May we rise to the occasion with courage and compassion, with joy and wonder, with all the love and all the light that we can muster. And may we never forget the incredible beauty and potential that lives within us, the boundless capacity for growth and transformation that is our birthright and our gift. For we are the ones we have been waiting for, the ones who hold the keys to our own liberation and the healing of the world. So let us keep walking this path, my friends. Let us keep tending the gardens of our own becoming and co-creating the conditions for a world of justice and flourishing for all. The journey is long and winding, full of twists and turns and unexpected revelations, but it is a journey worth taking, a path worth following, all the way home to the fullness of who we are and who we might become. And I am honored and grateful to be walking it with you, step by step, breath by breath, in the great unfolding dance of life. May we keep learning and growing together, and may the journey be as beautiful and transformative as the destination. Onward we go, into the wild and wondrous emergence of it all. As I've continued to explore the idea of emergence and how it shows up in our lives, I keep coming back to this sense of wonder and awe at the sheer complexity and beauty of the world around us. It's like the more I learn about the way that systems and patterns arise and evolve over time, the more I realize just how much there is still to discover and understand. One area where this really hits home for me is in the realm of ecology and the natural world. Have you ever taken a walk in the woods and just marveled at the incredible diversity and interconnectedness of all the different forms of life you encounter? From the towering trees to the tiny insects, from the delicate wildflowers to the rich soil beneath your feet. It's all part of this vast, intricate web of relationships and feedback loops that sustains and regenerates itself over time. And the more I learn about ecology, the more I realize that this kind of emergent complexity isn't just some random accident or coincidence. It's actually a fundamental property of life itself. It's like nature has this incredible ability to self-organize and adapt to changing conditions, to create these resilient, dynamic systems that can withstand all kinds of disturbances and disruptions. Take a coral reef, for example. On the surface, it might just look like a bunch of colorful rocks and weird-looking fish. But when you start to look closer, you realize that it's actually this incredibly complex and delicate ecosystem with thousands of different species all working together in these intricate symbiotic relationships. You've got the coral itself, which is actually made up of tiny animals called polyps that secrete these hard calcium carbonate skeletons. And living inside the coral are these even tinier algae called zooxanthellae, which photosynthesize and provide the coral with energy and nutrients. And then you've got all the different fish and invertebrates that make their homes in the nooks and crannies of the reef, each one playing a specific role in maintaining the health and balance of the whole system. It's like this amazing underwater city with all these different neighborhoods and communities and economies all humming along in this delicate balance. And what's even more incredible is the way that the reef can adapt and regenerate itself in the face of challenges like storms, disease outbreaks, or even rising temperatures and ocean acidification. But here's the thing. As complex and resilient as coral reefs are, they're also incredibly fragile and vulnerable to disruption. And sadly, we're seeing that vulnerability play out in real time as reefs around the world are facing unprecedented threats from climate change, overfishing, pollution, and other human activities. It's a stark reminder that even the most intricate and adaptive systems have their limits, and that we have a responsibility to be good stewards and caretakers of the incredible web of life that sustains us all. And I think this is where the idea of emergence becomes so powerful and so relevant to our own lives and communities. Because just like a coral reef, we too are part of these complex, interconnected systems, these webs of relationships and interactions that shape who we are and how we show up in the world. And just like a coral reef, we have this incredible capacity for resilience and regeneration, for adapting to change and creating new possibilities in the face of challenges and setbacks. But we also have a responsibility to tend to the health and well-being of the larger systems we're a part of, to be mindful of the ways that our actions and choices ripple out and impact the world around us. So what does this look like in practice? How can we start to cultivate a sense of emergence in our own lives and communities, and work towards a world that is more resilient, more regenerative, and more deeply attuned to the interconnectedness of all things? I think it starts with curiosity and humility, with a willingness to keep learning and exploring, to ask questions and seek out new perspectives and ways of understanding the world. It means paying attention to the small details and the big picture, the micro and the macro, and looking for the patterns and relationships that connect it all together. It also means cultivating a sense of empathy and compassion for ourselves, for each other, and for the more than human world that sustains us. It means recognizing that we're all in this together, all part of the same interdependent web of life, and that our well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of the whole. And perhaps most importantly, it means being willing to show up fully and authentically, to bring our whole selves to the work of co-creating a world that works for everyone. It means tapping into our own unique gifts and passions and experiences, and finding ways to weave them into the larger tapestry of healing and transformation that is forever unfolding around us. This is the invitation of emergence as I see it, to participation, to creativity, to showing up with an open heart and a sense of wonder and possibility. It's not about having all the answers or getting everything perfect. It's about engaging wholeheartedly with the messy, beautiful, unfinished story of life, and doing what we can to help shape it in the direction of greater flourishing and connection. And the beautiful thing is, this is an invitation that is open to all of us, in every moment and every breath. We are all part of the great emergence of life, all co-creators in the unfolding story of healing and transformation. And every choice we make, every action we take, every relationship we cultivate, it all matters. It all makes a difference. So as we navigate the complexities and challenges of this particular moment in time, with all its upheaval and uncertainty, all its grief and its possibility, let us remember the lessons of emergence, the wisdom of the living world. Let us trust in the resilience and creativity of life itself, and in our own capacity to adapt and evolve and find new ways forward. Let us tend to the soil of our own hearts and communities, creating the conditions for new growth and healing to emerge. Let us listen deeply to the voices and stories and experiences of those who have been marginalized and oppressed, knowing that their liberation is bound up with our own. And let us work to create systems and structures and ways of being that are more equitable, more sustainable, more deeply rooted in the values of interdependence and care. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight. Emergence is a long, slow process, the work of lifetimes and generations. But every step we take, every seed we plant, every act of love and courage and compassion, it all matters. It all helps to shape the world that is coming into being. And as we walk this path together, let us remember to celebrate the beauty and the mystery of it all, the incredible gift of being alive, of being part of this vast, intricate, ever-unfolding dance of life. Let us find joy and wonder in the small moments and the big breakthroughs, in the challenges and the triumphs, in the messiness and the grace of being human. For this is the magic and the miracle of emergence, that in the very act of showing up and participating, we are forever changed, forever transformed. We become part of something larger than ourselves, part of the great story of healing and regeneration that is the birthright of every living being. So let us keep showing up, my friends. Let us keep learning and growing and evolving, together and individually, in all the ways that life calls us to. Let us trust in the wisdom of emergence and in the power of our own unique gifts and contributions, and let us never forget the incredible beauty and potential that lives within us and within the world around us. For we are all part of the great emergence of life, and what a wild, wondrous, precious journey it is. You know, the more I dive into this idea of emergence and the way it plays out in the world around us, the more I'm struck by the sheer creativity and ingenuity of life. It's like everywhere you look, you can find these incredible examples of complex systems and adaptations emerging from relatively simple interactions and rules. Take ants, for example. Have you ever stopped to watch a trail of ants marching along, carrying bits of food or building materials back to their nest? It's easy to dismiss them as just simple insects, mindlessly following their instincts. But when you start to look closer, you realize that there's actually this incredibly sophisticated level of organization and coordination going on. Each individual ant is just doing its own thing, following a few basic rules like follow the pheromone trail or pick up this crumb and bring it back to the nest. But out of those simple actions, these amazingly complex structures and behaviors start to emerge. You've got the intricate architecture of the ant nest itself, with its winding tunnels and chambers perfectly suited for storing food, raising young, and defending against predators. You've got the efficient division of labor, with different ants taking on specialized roles like foraging, nest building, or caring for the queen and her offspring. And perhaps most impressively, you've got the ability of the colony as a whole to adapt and respond to changing circumstances, whether it's finding a new food source, rebuilding after a disturbance, or even waging war against a neighboring colony. It's like the colony has this collective intelligence that emerges from the interactions of all its individual members, a kind of hive mind that allows it to solve problems and make decisions that no single ant could accomplish on its own. And the crazy thing is, this kind of emergent intelligence isn't limited to ant colonies. You can see it happening at all scales and in all kinds of systems, from the neurons in our brains giving rise to consciousness and complex thought, to the interactions of buyers and sellers in a market economy, to the flocking behavior of birds and the schooling of fish. It's like the universe has this incredible capacity for self-organization and creativity, for generating novel forms and behaviors from the bottom up rather than imposing them from the top down. But here's the thing. As awe-inspiring as these examples of emergence are, they're not always positive or beneficial. In fact, some of the most pressing challenges we face as a society today, things like income inequality, political polarization, or environmental degradation, could be seen as a kind of emergence gone awry, the unintended consequences of systems and incentives that have taken on a life of their own. Take climate change, for example. On one level, it's the result of a whole bunch of individual choices and actions. The cars we drive, the foods we eat, the energy we use to power our homes and industries. But those individual choices are shaped by larger systems and structures. Things like fossil fuel subsidies, consumerist culture, or the profit motive of corporations. And over time, those systems and structures have given rise to this incredibly complex and dangerous phenomenon. A warming planet, rising sea levels, more frequent and severe natural disasters, and all the ripple effects that come with them. So in a sense, climate change is an emergent property of our global economic and social systems, the unintended outcome of the way we've organized our societies and our relationships with the natural world. And the scary thing is, because it's an emergent phenomenon, it's incredibly difficult to address or reverse. It's not like there's some central authority or decision maker we can appeal to and say, hey, cut it out with all the carbon emissions. The problem is distributed, decentralized, and deeply embedded in the very fabric of our lives. But here's where I think the lessons of emergence can actually give us some hope and guidance. Because if these complex challenges are emerging from the interactions of many different parts and players, then that means we all have a role to play in shaping the future that emerges. Just like an ant colony, we may feel like insignificant individuals in the grand scheme of things. But every choice we make, every action we take, every conversation we have, it all matters. It all contributes to the larger patterns and structures that are shaping our world. So, what if we started to see ourselves as active participants in the great emergence of life, rather than just passive observers or victims of circumstance? What if we took seriously our own agency and creativity, our own capacity to make a difference in the systems and communities we're a part of? It might mean making different choices in our own lives. Things like reducing our carbon footprint, supporting local economies, or cultivating more compassionate and inclusive relationships. It might mean getting involved in our communities, advocating for policies and practices that promote the common good, or supporting the leadership and vision of those who have been marginalized and oppressed. And it might mean working to create new systems and structures entirely, things like regenerative agriculture, community-owned energy, or participatory democracy that are more aligned with the principles of emergence, more attuned to the interconnectedness and creativity of life. None of this is easy, of course. It requires a kind of radical imagination, a willingness to question the status quo and envision new possibilities. It requires a deep sense of empathy and solidarity, a recognition that our own well-being is intimately tied to the well-being of the whole, and it requires a great deal of courage and perseverance, a willingness to keep showing up and doing the work even when the odds seem stacked against us. But here's the thing. As daunting as it may seem, this is the work that we were made for. This is the great adventure of being alive, of being part of the incredible emergence of life in all its complexity and mystery. And the beautiful thing is, we don't have to do it alone. Just like an ant colony, we have this incredible capacity for cooperation and coordination, for working together towards a common purpose. We have the ability to learn from each other, to share our gifts and insights, to support and encourage one another along the way. So, as we navigate the challenges and opportunities of this moment in history, let us remember the lessons of emergence. Let us trust in the creativity and resilience of life itself, and in our own capacity to be agents of positive change. Let us work to create the conditions for new possibilities to emerge in our own lives, in our communities, and in the world as a whole. Let us listen deeply to the wisdom and experiences of those who have been marginalized and oppressed, knowing that their leadership and vision are essential for the healing and transformation of our world. And let us never forget the incredible beauty and potential that lives within us, and within the web of life that sustains us all. For we are all part of the great emergence, the unfolding story of the universe, the creative power of love and consciousness and connection. What a gift it is to be here, to be part of this amazing journey. What a privilege and a responsibility to participate in the shaping of our collective future. So let us rise to the occasion, my friends. Let us bring our full selves to the great work of healing and transformation, knowing that every choice we make, every seed we plant, every act of courage and compassion, it all matters. It all makes a difference. And as we walk this path together, let us remember to celebrate the beauty and the wonder of it all, the incredible gift of being alive, of being part of this vast, intricate, ever-unfolding dance of emergence. For this is the great adventure of our time, the call to co-create a world that is more just, more sustainable, more deeply attuned to the wisdom and creativity of life itself. And it is an adventure that belongs to all of us, an invitation to show up with open hearts and minds, ready to learn and grow and evolve together. So here's to the journey ahead, in all its mystery and possibility. Here's to the great emergence of life, and to our own humble place in its unfolding story. May we have the courage and the compassion to meet it with grace, with wonder, and with all the love we can muster. As I've been exploring this idea of emergence and the way it shows up in the world around us, I keep coming back to this sense of wonder and awe at the sheer creativity and beauty of life. And one of the places where I see that creativity and beauty most vividly is in the way that art and culture emerge from the complex interactions of individuals and communities over time. I mean, think about it. Every song, every painting, every story or dance or piece of theater that has ever moved us or inspired us or made us see the world in a new way, they all started with the spark of an idea in someone's mind, a moment of inspiration or creativity or self-expression. But that spark didn't happen in a vacuum. It was shaped and nurtured by all the experiences and influences and interactions that person had absorbed over the course of their life. The music they grew up listening to, the books they read, the conversations they had with friends and family and strangers. All of that became part of the soil in which their own creativity could take root and flourish. And then, when they shared that spark with the world, whether it was by performing on a stage or posting a video online or just humming a melody to themselves as they walked down the street, it became part of a larger web of creativity and culture, influencing and inspiring others in turn. It's like this beautiful, intricate dance of ideas and expressions, each one building on and riffing off the others, evolving and changing and taking on new forms and meanings over time. A jazz musician might take a classic Broadway tune and put their own spin on it, infusing it with new rhythms and improvisations that reflect their own unique style and sensibility. A painter might be inspired by a poem or a piece of music, translating those emotions and images into colors and shapes on a canvas. A filmmaker might draw on the storytelling traditions of their ancestors, weaving together ancient myths and modern-day experiences into something entirely new and fresh. And the crazy thing is, none of this is planned or directed from on high. There's no central authority or master choreographer dictating how culture should evolve and unfold. It's all emerging from the bottom up, from the countless interactions and influences and sparks of creativity that are happening all around us, all the time. Of course, that doesn't mean that culture and art exist in some kind of vacuum, completely divorced from the wider systems and structures of society. In fact, the opposite is true. The stories we tell, the songs we sing, the images we create and consume, they both reflect and shape the world we live in, for better or for worse. Think about how many of our cultural touchstones, from classic novels to popular TV shows, have reinforced harmful stereotypes or perpetuated systems of oppression and marginalization. Think about how the stories we tell about history and identity and belonging can either open up space for empathy and inclusion or shut it down in the name of fear and division. So, in a sense, the emergence of art and culture is deeply political. It's intimately tied up with questions of power and privilege, of who gets to tell their stories and have their voices heard, and whose experiences and perspectives are valued and celebrated. But here's where I think the lessons of emergence can offer us some guidance and inspiration. Because if culture is emerging from the complex interactions of many different individuals and communities, then that means we all have a role to play in shaping the stories and expressions that define our shared world. It means that every one of us, whether we consider ourselves artists or not, has the power to contribute our own unique spark to the larger web of creativity and meaning-making. It means that we can use our voices and our imaginations to challenge oppressive narratives and create new possibilities for justice and liberation. And it means that we can work to create the conditions for a more vibrant, diverse, and life-affirming culture to emerge. one that reflects and honors the full complexity and beauty of the human experience. What might that look like in practice? It might mean supporting and uplifting the work of artists and storytellers from marginalized communities, making sure that a wider range of voices and perspectives are being heard and celebrated. It might mean challenging ourselves to seek out stories and expressions that push us out of our comfort zones, that expand our sense of empathy and understanding. It might mean creating our own art and culture that speaks to the world we want to see, that inspires and empowers others to join us in the work of healing and transformation. And it might mean working to create more equitable and inclusive systems and structures in our schools, our workplaces, our cultural institutions that allow for a greater diversity of voices and experiences to flourish and thrive. None of this is easy, of course. It requires a great deal of courage and vulnerability, a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths and have difficult conversations. It requires us to be humble and open to feedback, to listen deeply to perspectives and experiences that might be different from our own. And it requires a kind of radical imagination, a belief in the power of creativity and storytelling to transform ourselves and our world. But here's the thing. As challenging as this work might be, it's also incredibly joyful and life-giving. There's something so deeply nourishing and inspiring about being part of a community of creativity and meaning-making, about feeling like our own unique gifts and expressions are valued and celebrated. And when we start to see ourselves as part of this larger web of emergence, as co-creators in the unfolding story of art and culture, it can give us a profound sense of purpose and connection, a feeling that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. So, as we navigate the complexities and challenges of this moment in history, let us remember the lessons of emergence in the realm of art and culture. Let us trust in the power of our own creativity and imagination, and in the incredible diversity and resilience of the communities we're a part of. Let us work to create the conditions for new stories and expressions to emerge, ones that are more inclusive, more life-affirming, more deeply attuned to the full complexity and beauty of the human experience. Let us challenge ourselves to seek out and uplift voices and perspectives that have been marginalized or silenced, knowing that their stories and their wisdom are essential for the healing and transformation of our world. And let us never forget the incredible gift and responsibility we have as co-creators in this great emergence of meaning and beauty. The opportunity to use our own unique sparks of creativity to help shape a world that is more just, more compassionate, more vibrantly alive. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight. This is the work of lifetimes and generations, the slow and patient weaving of a new cultural tapestry. But every stitch we make, every thread we contribute, every story we tell and song we sing, it all matters. It all helps to bring that new world into being. And as we do this work together, let us remember to celebrate the beauty and the joy of it all, the incredible privilege of being part of this ancient and ever-renewing dance of creativity and culture. Let us find inspiration and solace in the eye, stories and expressions that move us, that remind us of our shared humanity and our boundless potential for growth and transformation. For this is the great gift of art and culture, the way it connects us across time and space, the way it allows us to see the world through new eyes, to imagine possibilities we might never have dreamed of on our own. It is a vital part of the great emergence of life, a powerful force for healing and awakening and collective liberation. So let us embrace our role as co-creators in that emergence, my friends. Let us bring our full selves to the work of shaping a culture that is worthy of our highest ideals and aspirations, one that reflects the love and the justice and the beauty that lives in every human heart. And let us never lose sight of the wonder and the magic of it all, the incredible gift of being alive, of being part of this vast and intricate web of meaning and creativity and connection. What a journey we are on, my friends. What a beautiful, unpredictable, ever-unfolding adventure. May we have the courage and the creativity and the love to meet it with open hearts and minds, ready to be amazed and transformed by all that emerges along the way. You know, as I've been diving deeper into this idea of emergence and the way it plays out in the world around us, I keep coming back to this sense of interconnectedness, the way that everything is woven together in this vast, intricate web of relationships and influences. And one of the most powerful examples of that interconnectedness, I think, is the way that our own individual journeys of growth and transformation are shaped by the people and communities we're a part of. I mean, think about it. Who we are and how we show up in the world is so deeply influenced by the relationships and experiences we've had throughout our lives. The family we grew up in, the friends we've made, the teachers and mentors who have guided us, the communities we've been a part of. All of these have played a role in shaping our values, our beliefs, our sense of identity and purpose. And it's not just a one-way street either. We're not just passive recipients of all these influences, but active co-creators in the unfolding story of our lives and our relationships. Every interaction we have, every conversation, every moment of connection, or conflict, it all becomes part of the soil in which we grow and change and evolve over time. It's like we're all these unique little ecosystems, each one of us a complex web of experiences and influences and relationships. And just like in any ecosystem, there's this constant dance of give and take, of mutual shaping and adaptation and evolution. So maybe I'm going through a tough time, a breakup, a job loss, a health crisis, and I turn to my friends for support and guidance. And in those moments of vulnerability and connection, something starts to shift inside of me. I start to see my situation in a new light, to find new reserves of strength and resilience that I didn't know I had. Or maybe I'm part of a community that's going through a collective trauma or upheaval, a natural disaster, a social or political crisis. And we come together to support each other and work towards healing and change. And in the process, we start to forge new bonds of solidarity and trust, to discover shared purpose and vision that transcends our individual differences. And the beautiful thing is, these kinds of transformative relationships and experiences don't just change us as individuals, they also have the power to ripple out and shape the larger communities and systems we're a part of. Think about all the social movements and cultural shifts that have emerged from the grassroots over the years, from civil rights to environmental justice to LGBTQ+ liberation. All of them started with small groups of people coming together around a shared vision and values, supporting each other and working towards change in their own lives and communities. And as those small groups started to grow and connect with each other, as they started to build coalitions and alliances and movements, they began to have an impact on a much larger scale, changing laws and policies, challenging dominant narratives and power structures, reshaping the very fabric of our society in ways that were once unimaginable. It's like the old saying goes, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And what I love about that quote is the way it speaks to the power of emergence, the way that those small, localized actions and connections can give rise to these massive, transformative shifts over time. Of course, it's not always a smooth or straightforward process. There are setbacks and challenges and conflicts along the way, moments when it feels like the odds are stacked against us, or the obstacles are insurmountable. And there are no guarantees that our efforts will always bear fruit in the ways we hope or expect. But here's what I've come to believe, that the very act of showing up in our relationships and communities with an open heart and a commitment to growth and healing is itself a powerful form of emergence. That every moment of connection and care, every act of solidarity and love, every choice to lean into our own journey of transformation, it all matters. It all helps to shape the world we live in ways both seen and unseen. And when we start to see ourselves as part of this larger web of relationships and influences, when we start to trust in the power of our own unique gifts and experiences to make a difference, that's when we start to tap into the incredible creativity and resilience of the human spirit. That's when we start to see possibilities and pathways for change that we might never have imagined on our own. So, as we navigate the challenges and opportunities of this moment in history, let us remember the lessons of emergence in the realm of relationships and community. Let us recognize that we are all interconnected, all part of this vast and intricate dance of mutual shaping and transformation. Let us work to create the conditions for authentic connection and healing in our own lives and relationships, showing up with vulnerability and courage, practicing deep listening and empathy, being willing to sit with discomfort and uncertainty in the service of growth. Let us seek out communities of shared purpose and values, spaces where we can find support and solidarity in the work of personal and collective liberation. And let us look for ways to build bridges of understanding and collaboration across difference, knowing that our struggles and our hopes are ultimately bound up with each other. None of this is easy, of course. It requires a great deal of patience and persistence, a willingness to make mistakes and start again, to keep showing up even when the way forward is unclear. And it requires a kind of radical trust in ourselves, in each other, in the power of love and connection to guide us through even the darkest of times. But here's what gives me hope: the knowledge that we are not alone in this journey, that there are so many others out there who share our longing for a world of greater justice and compassion and healing, that every day, in ways both small and profound, people are coming together to support each other and work towards change, planting seeds of emergence in the soil of their own lives and communities. And as those seeds start to sprout and grow, as they start to connect with each other and form new patterns and possibilities, who knows what kind of beautiful, life-affirming world might emerge? So let us keep planting those seeds, my friends. Let us keep showing up for ourselves and for each other with open hearts and minds, ready to be changed and transformed by the relationships and experiences we encounter along the way. Let us trust in the power of emergence to guide us towards a future that is more just, more sustainable, more deeply attuned to the needs of all beings. And let us never lose sight of the incredible beauty and potential that lives within each one of us, the unique gifts and stories and experiences that we bring to this great unfolding dance of life. What a journey we are on, my friends. What a privilege it is to be alive in this moment, to be part of this incredible web of connection and possibility. May we have the courage and the grace to meet it with all that we are, our joys and our sorrows, our wounds and our gifts, our deepest longings for healing and wholeness. May we learn to see ourselves and each other through eyes of love and compassion, to honor the sacred spark that lives in every human heart. And may we never forget that we are all in this together, that our liberation is bound up with the liberation of all beings, and that every small act of love and courage and connection helps to move us closer to the world we dream of. So let us keep walking this path of emergence, hand in hand and heart to heart. Let us keep trust in the journey, even when the way is uncertain. And let us always, always remember that we are here for a reason: to love, to serve, to create, to become the fullest and most luminous expression of who we truly are. What a gift it is to be part of this amazing, heartbreaking, stunning adventure of being human. What a miracle to get to co-create the story of our own becoming and the becoming of the world. Let us rise to the occasion, my friends. Let us say yes to the call of our own awakening and trust that the path will reveal itself, one step at a time, as we walk it together. As I've been exploring this idea of emergence and the way it shows up in our lives and in the world around us, I keep coming back to this sense of awe and wonder at the sheer complexity and beauty of it all. And one of the places where I see that complexity and beauty most vividly is in the natural world, in the intricate ecosystems and patterns and processes that sustain life on this planet. I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about how incredible it is that we live on this tiny blue marble in the vast expanse of space, this one-of-a-kind oasis that's teeming with such an astonishing diversity of life? From the tiniest microbes to the tallest trees, from the depths of the oceans to the heights of the mountains, everywhere you look, there are these amazing examples of adaptation and resilience and creativity. These complex webs of relationships and interdependencies that have evolved over millions of years. And the more I learn about ecology and the natural world, the more I'm struck by how much it has to teach us about emergence, and the way that complex systems and patterns arise from relatively simple interactions and rules. Take a forest ecosystem. For example, on the surface, it might just look like a bunch of trees and plants and animals all doing their own thing. But when you start to look closer, you realize that there's this incredible web of relationships and feedback loops that keeps the whole system in balance. You've got the trees, which are like the anchors of the ecosystem. They provide shelter and food for countless other species. They help to regulate the climate and the water cycle. They even communicate with each other through these incredible underground fungal networks. And then you've got all the other plants and animals that depend on the trees. The insects and birds and mammals that pollinate flowers and disperse seeds, the fungi and bacteria that break down dead organic matter and recycle nutrients back into the soil, the predators that keep populations in check and maintain the overall health and resilience of the ecosystem. It's like this incredible symphony of life, with each species playing its own unique part in the larger whole. And what's amazing is that none of it is centrally planned or controlled. There's no one telling the bees which flowers to pollinate, or the fungi which trees to partner with. It's all emerging from the bottom up, from the countless interactions and relationships and feedback loops that are happening all the time, all around us. And here's the thing. As complex and resilient as these natural ecosystems are, they're also incredibly vulnerable to disruption and collapse. We're seeing that play out right now, with climate change and habitat loss and all the other ways that human activities are putting pressure on the natural world. But here's where I think the lessons of emergence can give us some guidance and inspiration. Because if these ecosystems are so resilient and adaptable, if they've been able to evolve and thrive for millions of years in the face of all kinds of challenges and disruptions, then maybe there are some principles and strategies we can learn from them as we work to build a more sustainable and regenerative future. One of the key things that emerges from the study of ecology is the importance of diversity and redundancy in creating resilient systems. In a healthy ecosystem, you've got a wide range of species and genetic diversity, which means that if one species or population is wiped out by a disease or a natural disaster, there are others that can fill in the gaps and keep the system functioning. And you've also got a lot of redundancy built in. Multiple species that can perform similar functions, multiple pathways for energy and nutrients to flow through the system. So even if one part of the ecosystem is disrupted or damaged, there are other parts that can pick up the slack and keep things going. I think there's a powerful lesson there for us as we think about designing our own social and economic systems. How can we build in more diversity and redundancy, more resilience, and adaptability in the face of change and uncertainty? Maybe it means moving away from monoculture agriculture and industrial food systems, and towards more diversified, locally adapted ways of growing and distributing food. Maybe it means decentralizing our energy and transportation systems, creating more modular and distributed networks that can withstand shocks and disruptions. And maybe it means rethinking our whole approach to economic development, moving away from the extractive, growth-at-all-costs mindset that's driving so much of the ecological crisis we're facing, and towards a more regenerative, circular model that works with rather than against the cycles and processes of the natural world. Of course, none of this is easy. It requires a profound shift in the way we think about our relationship to the planet and to each other, a willingness to let go of old paradigms and embrace new ways of being and doing. And it requires a deep sense of humility and respect for the wisdom and intelligence of the natural world, a recognition that we have so much to learn from the countless species and ecosystems that have been evolving and adapting for millions of years. But I believe that this kind of ecological thinking, this emergence-based approach to sustainability and regeneration, it's not just a nice idea or a utopian fantasy. It's a matter of survival, a key to building a world that can support and sustain life in all its incredible diversity and beauty. And the good news is, we're not starting from scratch. All around the world, there are people and communities and movements that are already putting these ideas into practice. From regenerative farmers and permaculture designers to indigenous land stewards and environmental justice activists. These are the folks who are working to heal and restore degraded ecosystems, to build resilient and regenerative communities, to create new models of economic development that prioritize the health and well-being of people and planet. They're the ones who are planting the seeds of a new way of being and doing, a new story of our relationship to the earth and to each other. And as those seeds start to sprout and grow, as they start to connect with each other and form new networks and movements, I believe that something truly extraordinary is possible. A world where we recognize our deep interdependence with all of life, where we work with rather than against the wisdom and intelligence of the natural world, where we create systems and structures that are resilient and regenerative and life-affirming for all. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight. This is the work of generations, the slow and patient weaving of a new tapestry of life. But every seed we plant, every step we take in the direction of healing and regeneration, it all matters, it all helps to bring that world into being. And as we do this work, let us remember to celebrate the beauty and the wonder of the natural world that sustains us, the incredible gift of being part of this vast and intricate web of life. Let us cultivate a sense of awe and reverence for the countless species and ecosystems that have so much to teach us, so much wisdom to share. And let us never lose sight of the incredible potential that lives within each one of us, the power we have to heal and restore, to create and regenerate, to become partners and stewards in the ongoing emergence of life on this planet. What a journey we are on, my friends. What a privilege it is to be alive at this moment in history, to be part of this great turning towards a more just and sustainable and life-affirming world. May we have the courage and the humility to meet it with open hearts and minds, to learn from the wisdom of the natural world and from each other. May we trust in the power of emergence to guide us towards a future that works for all beings. And may we never forget that we are all in this together, that our liberation and our healing is bound up with the healing of the earth and all its creatures, that every small act of love and courage and stewardship ripples out in ways we can scarcely imagine, helping to bring forth the world we dream of. So let us keep planting those seeds, my friends. Let us keep tending the soil of a more beautiful and regenerative future. And let us always, always remember that life is a miracle, a precious, sacred gift that we are called to cherish and protect with all that we are. Here's to the journey ahead in all its mystery and possibility. Here's to the great work of healing and regeneration that belongs to all of us. And here's to the wild, exuberant, unstoppable emergence of life in all its breathtaking diversity and resilience. May we walk this path with wonder in our hearts and courage in our steps, trusting that the earth is always there to catch us, to hold us, to show us the way home. You know, the more I dive into this idea of emergence and the way it shows up in the world around us, the more I'm struck by how much it has to teach us about the nature of change and transformation. Because when you really stop to think about it, so much of the change we experience in our lives and in the world happens not through some grand, top-down plan or design, but through the accumulation of countless small, seemingly insignificant actions and interactions over time. It's like the way a huge, majestic oak tree grows from a tiny acorn, not overnight, but through the slow, patient process of putting down roots, reaching for the sun, weathering the storms and seasons year after year. Each day, each moment, the tree is changing and growing in ways that might be imperceptible to the naked eye. But over time, those incremental changes add up to a profound transformation. And I think the same is true for so many of the changes and transformations we experience in our own lives and communities. Think about the way a friendship or a romantic relationship evolves over time. Not through some sudden, dramatic gesture, but through the daily acts of kindness and care, the shared laughter and tears, the gradual deepening of trust and understanding. Or think about the way that social movements and cultural shifts happen, not because some powerful leader or institution decides to make a change, but because ordinary people start to think and act differently in their own lives and communities, and those individual choices and actions start to ripple out and influence others. Until before you know it, the whole landscape has shifted. It's like the way a flock of birds or a school of fish moves together in these incredible, synchronized patterns, not because there's some master choreographer directing the action, but because each individual is tuned in and responsive to its neighbors, following a few simple rules that give rise to these amazingly complex and beautiful behaviors. And here's the thing. Understanding emergence and the way that complex systems change and evolve over time isn't just some abstract intellectual exercise. It has real implications for the way we approach the challenges and opportunities we face in our own lives and in the world around us. Because if we can start to see the world through the lens of emergence, to understand that change happens not through some grand top-down plan, but through the accumulation of small local actions and interactions, then it can actually be really empowering and liberating. It means that we all have a role to play in shaping the future, that every choice we make and action we take matters, even if it feels small or insignificant in the moment. And it also means that we don't have to have all the answers, or know exactly how things are going to turn out in order to start making a difference. We can start where we are, with what we have, and trust that our efforts will ripple out and contribute to the larger patterns of change and transformation that are unfolding around us. There's a great quote from the author and activist Adrienne Mari Brown that I think really captures this idea. She says, "Small is good, small is all. The large is a reflection of the small." In other words, the big, sweeping changes and transformations we long for in the world are actually the result of countless small, individual actions and choices, each one contributing to the larger whole. And when you start to look at the world through that lens, it can actually be really inspiring and hopeful. Because it means that change is always possible, that no matter how stuck or intractable a situation might seem, there are always new possibilities waiting to emerge, new ways of thinking and being and doing that we might not even be able to imagine yet. Of course, navigating change and uncertainty is never easy. It can be scary and disorienting to let go of our familiar patterns and ways of doing things, to step into the unknown and trust that something new and better is waiting to be born. And there will always be setbacks and challenges along the way, moments when it feels like we're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But I think that's where the lessons of emergence can really help us stay grounded and resilient in the face of change. Because just like in nature, where ecosystems are constantly adapting and evolving to meet new challenges and opportunities, we too have an incredible capacity for growth and transformation, for finding new ways to thrive and flourish even in the midst of adversity. And just like in those flocks of birds or schools of fish, we don't have to go it alone. We are all part of these larger systems and communities, these webs of relationship and interdependence that support and sustain us. When we can lean into those connections, when we can trust in the collective intelligence and wisdom of the group, we tap into a kind of resilience and creativity that is so much greater than what any one of us could achieve on our own. So, as we navigate the challenges and opportunities of this moment in history, let us remember the lessons of emergence. Let us trust in the power of small, local actions to ripple out and create big, systemic change. Let us embrace the uncertainty and the messiness of the journey, knowing that it's all part of the process of growth and transformation. And let us lean into the connections and communities that sustain us, remembering that we are all in this, together, all part of this grand unfolding story of life on this beautiful, fragile planet we call home. Because here's the thing, the world is changing, whether we like it or not. The old ways of doing things are crumbling and shifting beneath our feet. And we have a choice, in each moment, in each decision and action, to either cling to the familiar and the comfortable or to step bravely into the unknown, to be part of midwifing the new world that is waiting to be born. It won't be easy, and it won't always be comfortable. Growth and transformation rarely are. But I believe that it is the task of our time, the great adventure of our lives, to become co-creators and stewards of a world that is more just, more sustainable, more compassionate, and life-affirming for all beings. And the beautiful thing is, we don't have to have it all figured out. We don't have to know exactly where we're going or how we're going to get there. We just have to show up in each moment with an open heart and a willing spirit, ready to do our part, to be changed and transformed by the journey itself. Because that's the great secret of emergence, that the journey is the destination. That the small daily choices and actions we make, the ways in which we show up for ourselves and for each other, are the very stuff of transformation, the seeds of a more beautiful world waiting to be born. So let us walk this path together, my friends. Let us trust in the power of emergence to guide us, to show us the way forward, one tiny miracle at a time. Let us be brave enough to let go of what no longer serves, to step into the unknown with courage and curiosity, knowing that we are held and supported by the great web of life itself. And let us never lose sight of the incredible beauty and potential that surrounds us, the love and the magic and the mystery that is always waiting to emerge in every moment, in every breath, in every beat of our wild and precious hearts. This is the adventure of our lives, the great journey of becoming that we are all called to take. May we say yes to it, with all that we are, with all that we have. May we trust in the unfolding and in the promise of new life that is always waiting to be born. And may we never forget that we are all in this together, that our liberation and our healing is bound up with the healing of the earth and all its creatures. That every small act of love and courage and compassion ripples out in ways we can scarcely imagine, helping to bring forth the world we dream of. So here's to the journey ahead, in all its mystery and its wonder. Here's to the great adventure of emergence that is always calling us forward, always inviting us to grow and change and become more fully ourselves. And here's to us, to the incredible community of souls and hearts that we are, each one of us a vital part of the larger story that is unfolding, each one of us a seed of possibility waiting to sprout and blossom and bear fruit. May we walk this path with joy and with gratitude, knowing that we are held and guided and loved beyond measure. May we trust in the journey and in the great love that is always there to catch us when we stumble and fall. And may we remember, always, that we are the ones we have been waiting for, the dreamers and the doers, the healers and the storytellers, the midwives of a more beautiful world. Let us step forward then with courage and with hope, knowing that the path will rise up to meet us, and that the future is ours to create, one tiny, miraculous choice at a time. Onward, my friends. The adventure is just beginning. You know, as I've been exploring this idea of emergence and the way it plays out in our lives and in the world around us, I keep coming back to this sense of wonder and possibility. Because when you start to see the world through the lens of emergence, it's like everything becomes imbued with a kind of magic and mystery, a sense that there's always more to discover and learn and be amazed by. It reminds me of this quote from the poet Rumi: "Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment." In other words, let go of the idea that you have to have it all figured out, that you need to be in control or have all the answers. Instead, allow yourself to be surprised and delighted by the world, to approach each moment with a sense of curiosity and openness and wonder. And the more I've practiced this kind of emergent mindset, the more I've come to realize that it's not just a nice idea or a philosophical musing. It's actually a deeply practical and transformative way of moving through the world. Because when you're able to approach life with a sense of openness and curiosity, when you're willing to let go of your preconceptions and expectations, and just be present to what's actually unfolding in front of you, amazing things can happen. You start to notice all sorts of little details and patterns and connections that you might have missed before. You start to see opportunities and possibilities that you never even imagined. It's like when you're walking in nature and you suddenly spot a beautiful wildflower or a colorful bird that you've never seen before. In that moment, your whole perception of the world shifts. You realize that there's so much more to discover and appreciate. So many tiny miracles happening all around you all the time. And the same is true in our relationships and communities, in the work that we do and the challenges we face. When we're able to bring that sense of openness and curiosity to our interactions and collaborations, when we're willing to let go of our agendas and our egos, and just be present to what's emerging, between us, incredible things can happen. We start to tap into a kind of collective intelligence and creativity that is so much greater than what any one of us could achieve on our own. We start to find new ways of working together and supporting each other, new solutions to old problems, new possibilities for growth and transformation. And here's the thing, this kind of emergent approach isn't just some woo-woo New Age idea. It's actually backed up by a lot of cutting-edge science and research, from complexity theory to neuroscience, to evolutionary biology. There's this fascinating concept in complexity science called the edge of chaos, which is this sweet spot between order and disorder, where complex adaptive systems tend to thrive. It's the place where there's enough structure and stability to provide a foundation, but also enough flexibility and openness to allow for novelty and innovation to emerge. And what's really cool is that this edge of chaos seems to show up everywhere in nature, from the way that ant colonies organize themselves to the way that the human brain processes information. It's like there's this universal principle at work, this idea that the most creative and resilient systems are the ones that are able to balance structure and flexibility, order and chaos. And I think the same is true for us as individuals and as communities. When we're able to find that sweet spot between planning and improvisation, between control and surrender, between holding on and letting go, that's when the real magic happens. That's when we're able to tap into a kind of creativity and adaptability and resilience that we never even knew we had. But of course, it's not always easy to live on that edge of chaos. It can be scary and disorienting to let go of our familiar patterns and routines, to step into the unknown and trust that something new and beautiful will emerge. It takes a lot of courage and vulnerability and faith to keep showing up in that way, day after day, moment after moment. And that's where I think community and connection are so important. Because none of us can do this work alone. We need each other to hold us accountable, to mirror back our blind spots and our brilliance, to remind us of who we really are and what we're really capable of. We need those moments of laughter and tears, of deep listening and fierce loving, of celebrating each other's successes and mourning each other's losses. We need to feel seen and heard and held in all of our messy, beautiful humanity, to know that we belong to something bigger than ourselves. And the amazing thing is, when we're able to show up in that way for each other, when we're able to create those kinds of authentic, emergent communities and relationships, it doesn't just benefit us as individuals. It actually starts to ripple out and impact the larger systems and structures that we're a part of. Because here's the thing, the world is changing, whether we like it or not. The old ways of doing things are crumbling and shifting beneath our feet, and we have a choice, in each moment, in each interaction and collaboration, to either cling to the familiar and the comfortable, or to lean into the unknown, to be part of midwifing the new world that is waiting to be born. And when we choose the latter, when we choose to show up with openness and curiosity and courage, to be part of creating a more just and sustainable and life-affirming world for all, incredible things can happen. We start to see new possibilities and pathways for change that we never could have imagined on our own. We start to build movements and communities and initiatives that have the power to transform entire systems and cultures. We start to unleash a kind of collective wisdom and creativity and love that has the power to heal our world from the inside out. And the beautiful thing is, we don't have to have it all figured out. We don't have to know exactly where we're going or how we're going to get there. We just have to keep showing up in each moment with an open heart and a curious mind, ready to be surprised and delighted and transformed by the journey itself. Because that's what emergence is all about. It's about trusting in the unfolding, in the power of small actions and authentic connections to create big, beautiful, world-changing ripples. It's about living on the edge of chaos, in that sweet spot between structure and flow, order and possibility. It's about becoming fully alive to the magic and the mystery of each moment, each encounter, each breath. And honestly, I can't think of anything more exciting or meaningful or life-giving than that. To know that we are all part of this grand, cosmic dance of emergence, this great unfolding of life and love and creativity in the universe. To know that we all have a role to play, a unique gift to offer, in the healing and transformation of our world. So let us step forward then, with courage and with wonder, with open hearts and curious minds. Let us trust in the power of emergence to guide us and sustain us, to show us the way forward, one tiny miracle at a time. Let us become fully alive to the magic and the mystery that is always waiting to emerge, in every moment, in every breath, in every beat of our wild and precious hearts. And let us never forget that we are all in this together, that our liberation and our healing is bound up with the healing of the earth and all its creatures. This is the great adventure of our time, the call of our souls and our communities and our world. May we say yes to it, with all that we are and all that we have. May we become the poets and the prophets, the healers and the dreamers, the ones who midwife a more beautiful world into being. And may we never lose sight of the wonder and the mystery that is always right here, waiting to be discovered, in the flutter of a butterfly's wing, in the laughter of a child, in the first signs of spring after a long dark winter. This is the miracle of emergence, the great truth at the heart of it all, that life is always unfolding, always evolving, always inviting us to step into the fullness of who we really are. And how lucky are we to get to be part of it all. Onward, then, into the mystery and the magic. The future is waiting for us to create it, one wild and precious moment at a time. Let's begin.